Chapter 141, Men Can't Be Too Fast. I made an appointment with Ning Yi to register for the professional competition tomorrow morning. That night, Lin Moyu wasn't idle either. He used points to rent the school's skill training hall and began summoning skeletons. The academy's training hall wasn't as convenient as the military's skill field, but it was still far quicker than relying on his own meditation. A level 26 skeleton mage required 2,400 points of mental power to summon. Title-related costs added another 1,200 points, and once you factored in equipment and title bonuses, each mage effectively cost 4,600 points of spiritual power. The hall limited him to summoning 3 at a time, but by repeatedly meditating to restore his mental strength, he managed to summon 10 skeleton mages over the course of the night. By the end of his session, he had 150 skeleton warriors, 100 skeleton mages, and room for 10 more summons. That was more than enough for Lin Moyu to handle most situations. At least, among professionals of the same level, he could be considered unbeatable. Registration for the pro contest opened today. There were sign-up points all over the world, and Xiajing Academy had several registration stations set up. There were a lot of people at the registration point. Regular students and those from the independent colleges were filing in one after another. The line stretched far back. Lin Moyu scanned the crowd, searching for Lin Mohan. "Are you looking for your sister?" Ning Yi asked softly. Lin Moyu nodded, but he still couldn't spot her. Ning Yi explained. The 3 top colleges, Creation Theology, Creation College, and Yanhuang, don't register here. Their students have separate registration points. "Oh," Lin Moyu said, looking at her. "Do you know where those points are?" Ning Yi shook her head. "No, I only know they're not on the main campus. Grandpa never told me the locations. He said you only get to know once you've been accepted. Since I came to the academy, I've never actually met a student from any of the top colleges. Those 3 schools are almost like their own world, very secretive. If you want to know what they're like, you have to join them. That's the dream of so many students." "I hope they'll come after the competition," Ning Yi thought. Just then someone called, "Lin Moyu." Ning Yi turned. A small group was walking toward them. The girl in front, Xiashui, was strikingly beautiful, almost as lovely as Lin Moyu. Beside her, another pretty girl smiled. Ning Yi recognized the same assassin specialization she had. A 4th figure carried a long sword on his back. Lin Moyu introduced them softly. "This is my high school classmate, Xiashui. These 2 are Zuo Mei and Feng Shu. We met during the provincial exam." Ning Yi returned the smile and, without thinking, slipped her small hand into Lin Moyu's larger one. Xiashui stepped forward and glanced at her. "Are you signing up too?" Lin Moyu nodded. "We're signing up as well," Xiashui said. "It's a shame you're already above level 20. Otherwise, we could have formed a team." Feng Shu grinned. "Yeah, if we could team up with you, we'd probably end up winning the whole thing." "It's not like right now, where we have to fight for our lives," someone said. "Then are you planning to compete with just 3 of you, or are you going to look for another teammate?" another asked. Team matches allow between 2 and 5 members. Obviously 5 is ideal, but some people are confident enough to come in pairs, like Lin Moyu and Ning Yi. Xiashui smiled. "Who is this young lady?" she asked Ning Yi. "With my connections, I don't just pick someone at random. Don't worry, we've already found a good person, someone reliable." Below level 20, the Prophet class doesn't get its full set of skills, so they're not very helpful to the team yet. A group of Prophets is rarely as useful as a team with dedicated healers. Xia Shui was outgoing and had made a lot of friends in a few days. She looked at Ning Yi, held out her hand, and introduced herself and her teammates. Xia Shui, level 17 Elemental Mage, Lin Moyu's classmate. Zuo Mei, level 17 Stalker. Feng Shu, level 17 Holy Swordsman. Ning Yi introduced herself with a smile. Ning Yi, level 25 Shadow Assassin, Lin Moyu's girlfriend. She said it plainly, without any pretense, and the others weren't surprised. "You're level 25? Xiashui exclaimed. Ning Yi laughed. "Yeah, it's all from doing the Silent Words quests." "No wonder." Feng Shu grinned. "Lin Moyu, don't forget to take us dungeon running. Don't put your girlfriend above your friends." Lin Moyu thought for a moment. "As soon as you hit level 20, I'll take you through the Tyrant Desert dungeon." Xiashui blinked. Why that one? Is it hard? Once Ningyi explained, they realized how different and dangerous that dungeon was. Anyway, Lin Moyu added, get to level 20 quickly and contact me. I'll run it with you. Zuo Mei turned to Lin Moyu. What level are you anyway? Level 26. The three of them made a small gasp. Since arriving at the academy, Lin Moyu had shot up the levels, 4 straight promotions in just a few days. They'd only been level 22 at the opening ceremony. Now he was already level 26. That wasn't just leveling up, it was flying. Feng Shu sighed. People care more about being popular than they do about each other. Xia shrugged. I care more about relationships than girlfriends. I advanced so fast I didn't bring any old classmates along. If you've got someone you like, you don't need friends. Zuo Mei shot Lin Moyu a cold look. Don't get ahead of yourself. The place went quiet. Everyone stared at Zuo Mei in surprise. She was only 18, but the remark was surprisingly sharp. Feng Shu blinked. What's gotten into you? Zuo Mei snorted. You just don't get it, do you? They chatted for a few more minutes. Then Xia Shui and her 2 friends went off to register with their teammates. Ningyi watched them go, her eyes amused. You and Xia Shui seem to get along really well, she said. Lin Moyu thought for a moment. We barely spoke in high school, maybe 10 sentences total. Ningyi laughed. You're hopeless. If I had a classmate that pretty, I'd definitely try to win her over. Lin Moyu shook his head. You're prettier. Ningyi felt a small, warm flutter at that. When someone usually quiet says something sweet, it always feels that much more sincere. Yi. When someone called her name, Ningyi looked up. Chao's smile grew even brighter. Miss Peach. Zhang Taotao, Duan Gao, and Miao Yu, friends she hadn't seen in a long time, walked over side by side. Ningyi ran to them and grabbed Zhang Taotao's and Miao Yu's hands. Sister Taozi, you should sign up too. Zhang Taotao hummed in agreement. Yes, the professional tournament only happens once every 5 years. We can't miss it. Miao Yu squeezed Ningyi's small hand. Yi, where have you been lately? We couldn't reach you. Taozi and I were a little worried. Ningyi giggled. Something came up. I had to leave for a while. By the way, have you found a team yet? A shadow of disappointment crossed Zhang Taotao's face. No. Duan Gao snorted. People turn us down because our levels aren't high enough. Nobody wants to team up with us. They had all leveled up during the trials on Mermaid Island. Zhang Taotao was now a level 24 elf knight, while Duan Gao and Miao Yu were both level 21, Duan as a prophet and Miao as an elder. Zhang Taotao could probably have found a team on her own, but bringing the other 2 along made it much harder. In the level 20 to 29 queue, everyone preferred higher-level parties, so their options were slim. If they couldn't find a group, they'd have to run it as a 3-person team. Miao Yu said softly, we're not trying to climb any rankings anyway. We just want to see it. Duan Gao snorted. They're all small-minded. We won't group with them next time. Ningyi rolled her eyes and piped up. Sister Taozi, let's form a team together. Have Moyu lead us and blind those people with our win, she added, earning to Lin Moyu with wide, hopeful eyes. Lin Moyu laughed and nodded. Sure, she didn't mind. Zhang Taotao's face lit up. Everyone at the academy knew how strong Lin Moyu was. Word had spread ever since she led 39 people to clear the tyrant raid. With Lin Moyu on their side, claiming the top spot in their bracket suddenly seemed all but guaranteed. Zhang Taotao shook her head. I have one condition, Yi. If you agree, we'll form the team. Ningyi, who was close to Tao Tao and never made a fuss, smiled. Sister Tao Tao always accepts anything, so go ahead. Zhang Taotao's expression stayed serious. If we win the championship, we don't want any prizes. Ningyi blinked. She hadn't expected that. Zhang Taotao continued. If we win, the school will give us contribution points. That should be reward enough. Duan Gao and Miao Yu quickly agreed. Yeah, that's fine. We just want the contribution points. The others understood why. Contribution points were hard to come by. For example, before going to the Yuan battlefield, Lin Moyu had only 90 contribution points. As he rose through the ranks, each additional star as a private added 10 points. By the time he reached a 10-star private, he had 190 points. Later, when he was promoted to second lieutenant, he picked up another 100 points and ended up with 290. Lin Moyu didn't know how many contribution points Zhang Taotao had, but it couldn't be more than he did. Chapter 142. If you want to kill me, I will kill you. Under Zhang Taotao's relentless coaxing, Ning Yi finally gave in. The 5 of them formed a team and signed up. 10 days from now, the 100th professional contest would open in Nanhong City of the Shenxia Empire. Zhang Taotao and the others were buzzing with excitement. If anyone could take the trophy, it would be them. Duan Gao clenched his fists. If they don't pick me for the lineup, they'll deserve to lose the championship. Miao Shu tugged at his sleeve anxiously. Don't say that. No team here has ever actually won the championship. Duan Gao nodded, eyes bright with determination. Exactly, so all the more reason we can't let them have it. They were walking and bickering, confidence and nerves mixed together, when someone stepped in front of them. Zhang Taotao frowned. What's up? It was Bai Li Sheng. Lin Moyu recognized him from the dungeon hall, the grandson of the dean at Bailey College. Bai Li Sheng's face was cold as he fixed his gaze on Ning Yi. Ning Yi, he said coolly, why are you with him? His eyes lingered on the small white hand she had slipped through Lin Moyu's arm. His expression was threaded with obvious jealousy. Ning Yi's face hardened into a look of disdain. Is that your business? She asked, voice flat. Bai Li Sheng's chest heaved with anger. He stepped closer, tone low and dangerous. You can't be with him. Don't forget who you are. Ning Yi pulled her hand free a fraction and gave him a glance that was all steel. Can you stop me? She asked, contempt calm and controlled. For a moment, Bai Li Sheng said nothing. Then his jaw tightened and he forced out the words, furious and helpless at once. I won't let this go. Around them, the group fell silent, tension crackling in the air. Zhang Taotao's excitement dimmed into guarded watching. Duan Gao's fists flexed. Lin Moyu stood quietly, letting Ning Yi take the lead. The brief confrontation had already shifted the mood. What was supposed to be a confident stride toward the tournament had turned into a new front line of its own. You're saying I don't care? Everyone knows you're my fiancé, Ning Yi. Bai Li Sheng shot back. Shut up! Ning Yi snapped, sharp as an angry little tigress. Have you lost your mind? I refused your proposal at the door. How dare you go telling people I'm your fiancé? Bai Li Sheng waved a hand, unfazed. Our families are close. What's the harm in saying it? You keep lying until you believe your own lies? Ning Yi retorted. If something's wrong upstairs, go see a better therapist. Don't come acting crazy here. Her voice trembled with anger now. It was fine before, but if you ever say that again, I'll tell Grandpa and he'll sort you out. Lin Moyu's eyes widened. She hadn't expected the usually playful Ning Yi to have such a cutting edge. Ning's face flushed and her chest heaved. She kept glancing at Lin and was secretly relieved when Lin stayed silent. Bai Li Sheng went a strange mix of colors, red then pale under her barrage. He clenched his jaw. All right, Ning Yi, he said through gritted teeth. This is never going to end. Remember it. She's Bai Li Sheng's woman. No one takes her from him. Little punk, you're dead. Sooner or later, I'll kill you. Ning Yi flashed her dagger. My wife said it straight, she said, and flame flared around Lin Moyu's palm, a clear killing intent. If someone meant to kill him, better he strike first. Zhang Taotao drew her long sword without hesitation. Duan Gao and Miao Yu fell into fighting stances as well. Bai Li Sheng's rank and power might be far above theirs, but that didn't mean they wouldn't try. At this moment, Lin Moyu and Ning Yi were their comrades in arms. Who are you planning to kill? Someone demanded. A deep voice answered from above. A blast of air hit them like a wave, and Bai Li Sheng was thrown hard to the ground with a choked cry. Blood dribbled from the corner of his mouth. He was hurt. Hanging in the air, Bai Yuan looked down at Bai Li Sheng with ice-cold eyes. You, he said quietly. You mean to kill him? Bai Li Sheng went suddenly pale with terror. Why had Bai Yuan come here? He had heard rumors about Lin Moyu and Bai Yuan, but had never taken them seriously, until now. What kind of man was Bai Yuan, and what business did he have with someone like this? Bai Li Sheng's heart churned with panic. Ning Yi slid the dagger back into its sheath. Her face was calm, no trace of anger, and she called out in a saccharine voice, Grandpa Bai. Bai Yuan inclined his head. Then, eyes fixed on Bai Li Sheng, he said quietly, Bai Li Sheng, tell me, who were you trying to kill? Bai Li Sheng went rigid with fear. He shook his head so hard he looked sick. Lord Bai, I didn't say anything. I didn't. Bai Yuan snorted. Get out of my sight. Next time I catch you, I'll hand your head straight to Dean Bailey Howe. At the mention of Bailey Howe, the dean of Bailey College, Bailey Sheng trembled and bolted, stumbling away in a desperate scramble. Bai Yuan descended lightly from where he had been hovering. The onlookers, Zhang Tiaotiao and the others, snapped to attention and saluted. In the Shenxia kingdom, you might not know the ruler, but everyone knew Bai Yuan. His reputation as the white god was simply too vast to ignore. Once the crowd had quieted, Bai Yuan turned to Lin Moyu. If I hadn't shown up, he asked, would you have done it? This Lin Moyu met his gaze without flinching. If he'd tried to kill me, I'd have killed him first. Bai Yuan's expression softened only slightly. What about the forces behind him? He said. You're not worried about their revenge? His grandfather was the dean of Bailey Academy, Bailey Sheng, a name that carried weight. A level 81 top-tier expert like him was far beyond what Lin Moyu could handle in a straight fight. Lin Moyu only shook his head. I thought it through. I'll kill him and teleport the body to your place. If you shelter me, fine, he added. If you don't, they'll send me to the Yuan battlefield. If that happens, I'll die. He wasn't naive. He had weighed the consequences. Bai Yuan's voice went low. You're gambling with your life. No, Lin said. I think you'll protect me. You're that sure? Bai Yuan studied him, a hint of admiration in his eyes. He hadn't expected this boy to think so thoroughly. If Bailey Sheng was dead, there would be only certain outcomes, no wiggle room. Lin's certainty wasn't from blind faith. Not sure, Lin corrected himself. Just a feeling. Bai Yuan burst out laughing. All right, good boy. You've got the backbone of my generation. He swiveled the conversation into a memory. Don't worry if you have to do it. Just be decisive, like when you took out the godson of the ancient Luo Holy See. Kill the snake before it can bite. When Old Ning raised the ancient Luo Holy See, they didn't dare make a sound afterward, Bai continued. One big fist settles everything in the end. The more Bai Yuan looked at Lin Moyu, the more pleased he became. The boy's nerve and clarity reminded him of harder times, and that satisfaction showed clearly on his face. Don't talk much. Kill decisively. No hesitation. That's all. Bai Yuan tossed a cooling talisman back to Lin Moyu as he spoke. The upgrade instructions have been sent to you. Gather the materials, and I'll find someone to help. Lin Moyu nodded. Understood. I've already sent your new mission. Get moving. With that, Bai Yuan glanced at Zhang Taotao and the others. And the three of you did well. He had a brief, approving look. The fact they dared to attack Bailey Sheng earned his respect. At least they had guts, he thought, unlike some people who were timid and afraid to show strength. Then he surged upward and flew off. Lin Moyu checked the communicator. Ning Yi peered over, eyes wide. What task did Lord Bai 727 give you? Lin Moyu read it aloud softly. He wants me to go to Fortress No. 3 and hunt abyssal demons. I need to make it to at least 2-star second lieutenant. That sounds simple, Ning Yi said, unconvinced. Lin Moyu shook his head. It's not just that. There are sometimes elemental anomalies outside Fortress No. 3 as well. Baishin asked me to retrieve the elemental crystals hidden in the elemental mysteries, Ning Yi said. Elemental mysteries? Lin Moyu frowned. You mean the elemental realm? Ning shook her head. Lin continued, I happened to read the mission qualifications yesterday. The Yuan battlefield outside Fortress No. 3 is commonly called the Elemental Plains. A massive battle broke out there once. Nearly 100 high-ranked elemental mages, 3rd rank and above, unleashed more than 1,000 forbidden-level spells. The ground itself became saturated with raw elemental energy, and in the aftermath, many elemental creatures emerged. Ever since, people have called that place the Plane of Elements. Ning Yi's eyes lit with curiosity. I've never seen an elemental monster before. What are they like? She sounded less afraid than intrigued. Then go and see for yourself, Lin Moyu said. They arranged to meet Zhang Taotao and Tianhou in the city and set off for the Yuan battlefield using the teleportation array. Because Lin Moyu and the others held military ranks, they were authorized to travel farther via the array. Ning Yi, who was only a private, could still use it, but the farthest she was permitted to teleport was Fortress No. 3. Lin Moyu was a second lieutenant. Even without a star on his insignia, he could get as far as the 5th fortress. Fortress No. 6783 was another matter. You needed to be at least a colonel to set foot inside. Rank was more than just a record of service. It was a sign of real power. Chapter 143. I said I forgot. Do you believe it? The teleportation finished. Lin Moyu stepped onto the ground again, and Ning Yi curled up against his chest, eyes squeezed shut. With him holding her, the jump didn't feel nearly as rough. We're here, he said, giving her a light pat before setting her down. Ning Yi shook her head and looked up at him. From now on, whenever we teleport, you have to hold me like that. Okay? All right, he answered. He cradled her as if she were a piece of polished jade, quietly pleased but careful not to let it show. The third fortress was laid out exactly the same as the first. Lin Moyu headed straight for the exchange and discovered that several of the weapons and items he'd consigned had already sold. After settling the accounts, he received 60 million gold coins. His total on hand now stood at 160 million. While browsing the third fortress exchange, he also noticed some materials listed there that hadn't been available at the first fortress. Elementary Fire Element Crystal Core, a material for enchanting. Slotted into a weapon, it increases fire damage. Slotted into armor, it boosts fire resistance. Elementary Wind Element Crystal Core, used for enchanting. There were 4 basic elemental cores, wind, fire, water, and earth, each used by enchanters to imbue equipment with elemental properties. Handed over to a professional enchanter for processing, a crystal core can give a class the ability to deal elemental attacks, or it can be used to increase a wearer's resistance to that element. Lin Moyu's thoughts went straight to the ghost he'd met when he first entered the Yuan battlefield. Soul monsters had no physical form and were completely immune to ordinary physical attacks. For any class without access to elemental damage, facing that kind of creature would be a nightmare. Primary elemental crystal cores aren't cheap, Ning Yi went on. They cost as much as 100,000 gold coins each. Because of how important they are, the number 3 fortress even has a dedicated enchantment hall. She smiled as Lin Moyu nodded in understanding. That hall was set up by the Enchanters Guild. They have branches in a few of the major cities as well. Most trades had their own guilds. Alchemists had an alchemist guild, knights had a knights guild, and naturally, enchanters had an enchanters guild. Professionals in the same field gathered there to swap information, take jobs, and help one another. Each enchanter had a private room so they wouldn't get in each other's way. Lin Moyu glanced around the hall and lost interest. He had no weapons that needed enchanting. Skeletal warrior weapons couldn't be enchanted anyway. And Ning Yi had no need for the service either. Enchanting was how enchanters earned a living and gained experience. Casting enchantments on others was one of the main ways they leveled. Only when they reached a certain threshold could they regularly join dungeon runs, so many low-level enchanters paid stronger players to carry them. They left the guild and walked toward the castle gate, but the city guards stopped them. "Young man, you'll die if you go out like this," one of them warned. The guard was a level 45 veteran, a senior officer who could read character information at a glance. He had already seen Lin Moyu and Ning Yi's profession levels and wasn't about to let them walk into danger unprotected. Lin Moyu was only level 26 and Ning Yi only level 25. "Isn't that just asking to get killed?" someone muttered. Lin Moyu waved him off. "Don't worry, we'll be fine. The weakest monsters on the elemental planes start at level 33, the guard said. You're only level 26. Listen to me and go back." Then he noticed Lin Moyu's insignia. "Wait, you're a second lieutenant?" he added, startled. "All the more reason you can't go out there. It's too dangerous." The guards tried to stop them, acting out of duty and caution. A patrol team happened to pass by then. The leader halted and asked, "What's going on?" The guard hurriedly explained, "Captain, they're planning to go out. I told them it's too dangerous and advised them to return." The captain looked both of them over. "Level 26 and level 25, and you want to go out to die? Where are your superiors? What's the situation?" Both captain and guard sounded every bit as serious and responsible as their uniforms suggested. Lin Moyu could tell their concern was professional rather than personal, so he said nothing. There was no fog on the elemental plains. The visibility was far better than outside Fortress No. 1, and these patrols had keen, trained eyes. From where he stood, Lin Moyu made out an elemental monster wandering aimlessly about 700 or 800 meters away. The creature was a fire elemental, its body wreathed in flames. A sudden gust of wind made the captain and his guards shiver. The hairs on their arms rose. In front of Lin Moyu, 5 skeleton warriors materialized. "Is that your summon, young man?" the captain asked, and only then did he realize Lin Moyu's profession, a necromancer, something he had never seen before. The skeletons clacked as they took off, moving with startling speed. Once they cleared the city gate, their pace accelerated again, like bolts of lightning. "So fast," several senior players muttered. Such velocity implied unusually high stats. The 5 skeletons darted straight at the fire elemental. A red glow flared in their hands as they activated a skill, Frenzied Strike. Their arms rose and fell like knives, 5 strikes landing in rapid succession. With a pop of smoke, the fire elemental collapsed where it stood. System: Killed Fire Elemental Spirit, 33. Experience 16 5000. So fast, the senior professionals gaped, unable to hide their astonishment. 5 level 26 skeletons had just wiped out a level 33 fire elemental in an instant. It felt unreal. Level 26, that's strong. Did level 36 or even 46 even matter anymore? The captain's eyes snagged on the insignia at Lin Moyu's shoulder. Second lieutenant. So young to have made second lieutenant. He was a second lieutenant too, a 5-star one, but he remembered he was level 38 when he earned the rank. Young and powerful, Lin Moyu had left a deep impression. Ning Yi had already guessed what the captain would decide. "Can we go out now?" she asked. The captain swallowed and nodded. "Go ahead." Freed at last, Lin Moyu and Ning Yi stepped onto the elemental plane. Ning Yi frowned. "They're being too cautious." Lin Moyu reached out and patted her head. "They're just trying to keep us safe. The elemental plane isn't like the meta battlefield outside Fort No. 1. Without the fortress, the 2 places couldn't even be connected. I don't know how many forbidden rituals were performed to shape this land, but whatever they did, it's been completely elementalized. The air and the ground were alive with elements. Every breath drew in a different mix, sometimes refreshing, sometimes scalding. One inhale felt cool and pleasant, the next scorched the throat. One gust was mostly wind with a hint of water, the next was pure fire. At times, her nose tingled from too much electricity. "What kind of place is this?" Zhao Hao muttered. "How can anywhere like this exist?" Ning Yi's first bite was still piping hot. The second was ice cold, so extreme it made her gasp. Seeing her grimace, Lin Moyu actually laughed out loud. Annoyed, Ning Yi lobbed a small hammer at him. "You're laughing now? What's so funny?" She wheezed through a cough. She drew in another lungful of elemental air and started coughing until tears came to her eyes. Lin Moyu just smiled, produced a mask, and handed it to her. A small plaque on it read, "Element Mask, filters of a variety of airborne elements." Ning Yi stared at him. "Why didn't you give that to me sooner?" Lin Moyu shrugged, trying to look innocent. "I told you, I forgot. Do you believe me?" "Yeah, sure," she snapped, "and I'm a ghost." He obviously bought it. He must have bought it on the exchange. If he doesn't admit it, he'll only make a fool of himself. Ning Yi bared her teeth and launched herself at L. In Moyu, claws slashing. Someone nearby shouted, "Miss Ben, go, help her!" A sphere of wind hurtled in from a distance and slammed into the 2 of them. The bone armor flashed as it took the blow, throwing up a bright shield. The wind howled, and the tornado hit them dead on. Chapter 144, Elemental Mystery Arrives. 2 psychopaths. A gust of wind cut through the air, and the skeleton's armor flashed as it intercepted the attack, shielding its master. The skeleton warrior reacted instantly and streaked forward like lightning. In the air, a wind elemental hovered, its body a hazy blue light as it hammered at Lin Moyu and Ning Yi without pause. The skeleton warrior leaped up to intercept, but the wind spirit moved with impossible speed and slipped aside. "Wisdom?" Ning Yi blurted, surprised. "No, instinct," Lin Moyu replied, making a snap judgment. He understood that the elemental's evasive moves weren't calculated tactics but pure reflex. Acting on that, he released 10 skeleton mages and simultaneously unleashed a control technique. The detection readout for the wind spirit appeared in his vision. Spirit of Wind Element, level 34. Power, 4000. Agil 1000. Spirit, 7000. Physique, 5500. Skills, Windball, storm, characteristic, immunity to wind element. There was an additional note in the detection that Lin had never seen before. Unlike creatures such as the battlefield ghost, whose physical immunity only takes effect when a skill is activated, this wind spirit's characteristic meant it was inherently immune to wind, no skill activation required. The wind elemental drifted just out of reach, hovering in the air, while the skeleton warriors leapt and missed again and again. As soon as the skeleton mage appeared, he began casting, quickly activating his spells. The elemental's evasive attacks were useless against him. His magic was precise and relentless. In a single barrage, the wind elemental was blasted apart. Kill the level 34 wind elemental spirit. Experience 17,000. Lin Moyu stared at the prompt and frowned. The wind elemental left no corpse. The fire elemental that had just been killed earlier had also vanished without leaving a body. Could it be elemental lifeforms don't leave corpses? If that was true, corpse explosion was useless against them. Losing that option meant losing his main method for clearing groups at once. Just like the Hell instance, this place would have to be cleared the old-fashioned way. Lin Moyu decided to take another look to confirm his guess. Ning Yi giggled. This is so comfy. How do I look in a mask? She slipped on an elemental mask, and her already large eyes looked even bigger and brighter. The wind spirit's earlier sneak attack hadn't fazed her at all. Lin Moyu smiled. Very pretty. Your eyes look big and lovely. Ning Yi puffed up with pride. Of course, Miss Ben's eyes are the prettiest. The deeper they went into the elemental plane, the thicker the concentration of elemental monsters became. Plenty of hunters frequented the area, usually in pairs or trios, specializing in hunting elementals. The elementals weren't very strong, but they sometimes dropped elemental crystal nuclei, small, valuable items that added up quickly and sold for a good price. More importantly, the area wasn't especially dangerous. Lin Moyu summoned 5 more skeleton warriors. With 10 skeleton warriors and 10 skeleton mages in total, they could easily dominate the elemental plane. Elemental monsters didn't leave behind bodies, so techniques like corpse explosion were useless here. I read about it in the school library, Lin Moyu said. There's an entry on the plane of elements. Ning Yi listened as Lin continued. After being subjected to thousands of forbidden spells, the plane has become a place made almost entirely of raw elemental energy. The power of the abyss there is overwhelming. But the demon who dwells in the abyss won't give up. He's been struggling for years to reach out. You can actually feel it? Ning asked. If you make it to the far edge of the plane, you can touch the abyss's presence, Lin said. That's where you'll find abyssal demons. That means if we want them, we have to get to the edge, Ning said. They walked on. After half a day of travel, Lin checked their progress and said they'd covered roughly a third of the distance. If we push another half day, we'll be close, she added. For trained operatives like them, the walking wasn't a burden. Neither of them felt tired. Unless they were dragged into a fierce fight, a few days and nights of marching didn't matter. Still, the plane itself made things harder. Elemental spirits were becoming more numerous the deeper they went. Wind elementals in particular were a nuisance. Their ability to fly made them difficult to pin down. They pressed forward, alert to every whisper of the elements around them, knowing the farther they went, the closer they came to the abyss and whatever horrors it guarded. The elemental spirits were trivial. 2 or 3 strikes and they were done. They weren't even elites, just ordinary level 34 monsters. The skeleton warrior cut them down with ease. Ning Yi, who had been talking, suddenly fell silent. Her expression tightened. Do you feel that? She asked. Lin Moyu did. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the elemental currents around them twisted into something erratic and unstable. They went on guard at once. Lin Moyu's reflex was to cast bone armor over himself and Ning Yi. The skeletal plating made them feel a whole lot safer. People, Ning Yi pointed ahead. A crowd was charging toward them, not a few stragglers but hundreds, sprinting full tilt. As they drew near, their panicked cries became clear. Run! Run! Don't just stand there. Get out of here. Behind the fleeing masses, a churning tide of elemental spirits was in relentless pursuit. A vast, surging swarm. Elemental unrest. That explained the tremors and the chaotic currents. Ning Yi stared, speechless. Is this an elemental lair? Lin Moyu shook his head. No, they've run into an elemental secret realm. Ningyi jumped up, delighted. Perfect. I was worried I'd miss out on getting into one. Elemental secret realms appear at random. When one manifests, the surrounding elements go mad, and swarms of elemental spirits are born in an instant. The realm is veiled, teleportation stones stop working, and escape becomes impossible. Any outsider who wanders in, whether abyssal beast or human practitioner, is immediately attacked by the spirits. These secret realms are traces of ancient wars. Only 50 or 60 practitioners managed to flee once, and they were chased by thousands of elemental spirits. The numbers are overwhelming. If the spirits left behind physical bodies when destroyed, Lin Moyu could dismiss them easily, even if there were 10 times as many. If, however, the spirits are incorporeal and leave no corpse, they become a little more troublesome to deal with, though still manageable. Why are you just standing there? Are you waiting to die? Are you crazy? Run! Can't you see all those elemental spirits behind us? Leave them, come on, run, they're gaining on us. People fled in a panic, screaming at Lin Moyu and Ningyi to get out of the way. But the two of them didn't move. Ningyi even gave a playful wave, utterly unconcerned by the swarming elemental spirits. The fleeing crowd stared at them as if they were insane, mad and blind. Not stopping to understand, they ran past. The elemental spirits pressed on after the fleeing people, and a few of them turned toward Lin Moyu and Ningyi. In an instant, Lin Moyu let his summons loose. 150 skeleton warriors and 100 skeleton mages erupted from the ground. The skeleton warriors crashed into the spirits like tigers into a flock, tearing through their ranks, while the skeleton mages rained down spells in a relentless barrage. Dozens of elemental spirits were wiped out in moments. System prompts flashed one after another, massive experience gained, and a pile of elemental crystal nuclei dropped from the slain spirits. The skeleton warrior and the skeleton mage fought in perfect tandem, and the Holy Spirit moved with blinding speed. A level 26 skeleton warrior had a 4-dimensional attribute score as high as 21,000, far higher than the level 33-35 elemental spirits, roughly 3 to 4 times their strength. The skeleton mage's spirit was even greater, at 42,000, and its burst magic damage was devastating. 2 of its spells could obliterate a single elemental. The elementals fell in droves. Then from a distance a sharp cry tore through the air. The elementals exploded all at once, sending the battlefield into an uproar of unimaginable chaos. Chapter 145. Strange and Magnificent Picture. The sharp hissing grew louder until it felt like a physical pressure in the ears. Ningyi clapped both hands over her head and staggered. What is that sound? I feel dizzy. All around them, the elemental spirits answered with the same sound, a shrill, intermittent hiss that seemed intent on piercing the eardrums. The elements were in chaos. The skeleton mage stood frozen, unable to form a single spell. High-level monsters were always the worst to deal with. If I'm right, Lin Moyu said, then it's the ruler of the elemental realm, the Queen of Elements. He raised his palm. Red light flared, and a vast scarlet net unfurled between earth and sky. Skill, slow curse. In an instant, enormous blood-red shackles descended over every elemental spirit in sight. Their hissing stretched and dragged out as if time itself had thickened. Their movements were slowed 39-fold. The ugly cries cut off almost immediately. Only a few of the deepest, sharpest hisses, far off, continued to persist. Kill, Lin Moyu ordered. At his command, the skeleton warriors hefted their swords and surged forward to attack. The elemental chaos had disrupted the skeleton mage's control, leaving only the skeleton warrior to fight. Fortunately, the warrior struck fast, just a few blows, and the nearest spirits were cut down. In no time, most of the attackers were wiped out, but the remaining skeletons drew the attention of the elemental spirits. The spirits abandoned their previous prey and converged on Lin Moyu instead. Those who had been hunted down looked on in disbelief, then shouted their gratitude as they watched the tide of the fight turn. Saved! Finally! I thought I was done for! Why did the spirits stop chasing us? Look over there. They turned and saw the 2 people they had once dismissed as mad, now calmly commanding a swarm of skeletons as they cut through the elemental spirits. The spirits were helpless against the bone blades and fell easily. Who are they? How can they be this powerful? Unbelievable. Those skeletons. Could they be summoners? I've never seen a summoner this strong. It's absurd. I used to call them crazy. Now I think I'm the crazy one. Yuansu stared dumbfounded as his spiritual defenses were repeatedly shredded by the assault. For several breathless minutes, the air was full of a high, hissing roar. Only after a while did the noise finally die down, leaving the remaining elementals dazed and uncoordinated. They began to recall their summons. The skeletons that had been waiting at the edge of the clearing were never meant to charge in hand to hand. Standing them down confirmed they had been more of a showpiece than frontline troops. At last, the incessant clamor faded. "My head feels like it's going to explode," Ning Yi muttered, exhaling hard. "That was unbearable. Let's move." The tally was brutal. More than 1,000 elemental spirits and a legion of only 150 skeleton warriors had cut them down in under 5 minutes. The gap in attributes was enormous, and the elementals had never faced opponents like this before, so they simply couldn't mount an effective defense. Lin Moyu gathered the skeletons and led them toward the direction the voices had come from. It was here, in the secret realm, that elemental crystals could be obtained, but only by defeating the elemental queen herself. There was only one word's difference between an element crystal and an element crystal nucleus, but it marked a huge gulf, basic versus advanced. Elemental crystal nuclei were generally low-level items used before level 40. An element crystal, by contrast, was a high-level item, the kind you needed for a class change after hitting 40. It wasn't an absolute rule, but it held true for most things. The Nirvana Soul Crystal Moyun had been searching fell into that second category, a rare, high-level crystal for use during a level 40 job change. They followed the sound and came upon a strange, magnificent sight that was hard to put into words. 4L, immense, spun and danced in the air, visible to the naked eye. Electricity twinkled like starlight, fire glowed like a jewel, air fanned out into wing-like forms, and water pooled into a perfect mirror. Ning Yi was enthralled. She had never seen anything so beautiful. It was breathtaking, and beneath that beauty lay a sense of danger. "Be careful," she cried. Lin Moyu reacted, but not quickly enough. A massive bolt of lightning struck, blindingly fast. His bone armor flashed and shimmered as it flared to absorb and deflect the blow. Ning Yi felt a spike of real fear. A moment ago, a blue light had flashed across her vision, and everything went blank. Without her bone armor, she would already be dead or badly wounded. She was only level 25. She knew how fragile she was. Then a storm of razor-sharp ice arrows descended from the sky, pattering down like a freezing downpour. The frozen arrows carried a biting chill, and they struck the skeletons with real force. Lin Moyu could feel the impact even through the armor of his skeleton warrior. "Slow curse!" Lin Moyu barked, slamming his palm forward. The curse hit, and the dazzling, intricate display before them vanished in an instant. Only then did Ning Yi realize that the gorgeous tableau had been an illusion formed by a tangle of elemental spirits. Under the slow curse, they separated, dissolving the illusion and revealing their true forms. A skeleton warrior had already surged forward. Even without a skeleton mage to lift them, the wind elementals could fly, but slowed to deceleration level 39, they were sluggish and couldn't evade the pursuing skeletal troops. Lin Moyu gave the order, "Deal with the wind elemental first." With a single strike, the elemental spirit collapsed. When it died, the secret realm that had been hiding behind it opened up before them. The realm itself was made entirely of elements and existed apart from the normal world. It wasn't like a rift or a dungeon you could instantiate separately. There was only one secret realm, and everyone who entered shared the same space. That meant if several teams attacked the realm at once, they were very likely to run into each other and fight. This elemental secret realm lay on the elemental plane, and its most famous product was elemental crystallization, elemental crystals. Those crystals were the raw material for top-tier platinum weapons, gear intended for players between level 40 and 59. Their value was astronomical. Even the cheapest platinum weapon could sell for over 5 million, and the most expensive could fetch as much as 1 billion. Weapons forged from elemental crystallization were the most prized of all platinum equipment, both in value and in peak attributes. But for Lin Moyu, The crystal's worth wasn't in making weapons. They were meant for Bai Yuan, for the cooling amulet Bai needed. Right, elemental crystallizations were one of the materials needed to upgrade a basic cooling shield to an intermediate one. He had none yet. Go in. The secret gate opened, and Lin Moyu strode through with his skeleton warriors. The air shifted as soon as they crossed the threshold. A cold wind bit at their faces. Before them rose an ice palace. In the elemental secret realm, everything seemed to be formed from pure elements, and here that element was ice. The surfaces were immaculate white, mirror smooth, throwing back light until even the smallest glint became blinding. The palace branched like a maze, a network of corridors and halls. Lin Moyu didn't like mazes. "Move out," he ordered. The skeletons fanned out at once, slipping into different passages. As they went, a rough map began to build in his mind from their feedback. Ning Yi watched him with interest. "Aren't we going to go in with them?" He shook his head. "No, let the skeletons scout. We'll follow once they find the right path." Ning Yi smiled. "Your skeletons are really useful. They can do anything." Lin Moyu couldn't help but think how convenient they were to command. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to level up so fast or grin through so many dungeons. 150 skeleton warriors fanned out, scouring the maze for an exit. We didn't run into any monsters, just winding corridors. Whenever a skeleton hit a dead end, Lin Moyu would quickly recall it and send another one out. My mental map of the place kept getting clearer. I even had the skeletons batter at the walls. They could smash through, but the ice reformed almost instantly, so it felt like a pointless chore. After roughly 10 minutes, we finally found the real exit. "Let's go. We found the way out," I called. Ning Yi giggled. "That was fast. Those baby skeletons are so useful." Thankfully, skeletons don't have feelings. Otherwise, I'd be embarrassed to be called baby. A tide of skeletons poured out into the next chamber of the ice palace, and at the far end I saw it, a massive ice elemental seated on a throne of frozen crystal. It regarded the intruders with a cold, disdainful glare, anger flickering in its eyes, as if some uninvited guest had rudely woken it from its rest. A thunderous roar split the air, and a hail of icicles erupted from the crown of the ice palace, spraying in every direction. Each spike was massive, about a meter thick and 4 to 5 meters tall. The skeleton warriors charged forward, weaving through the falling shards. A few slipped through the gaps, but others were struck. Even a glancing blow from those icicles was enough to wound the skeletons. Lin Moyu activated his detection skill. The information shimmered into view. Name, Water Elemental General, Secret Realm Boss, Level 37, Power 13,000, Agility 0, Physique 16,000, Skills, Icicle Impact, Ice Whirlwind, Flood. Traits, Physical damage taken is halved, immune to ice element attacks. Agility 0, only then did Lin Moyu realize why the thing hadn't moved. It was rooted to the icy foundation beneath the palace. It couldn't be displaced. He'd never seen a monster like it before. Chapter 146, Ice Palace of Fire, Elemental General. The skeleton warriors surged at the Water Elemental General, unleashing their skills in a coordinated strike. One of them slammed a huge blade into the creature. The blow flashed red and sent a spray of shattered ice and frozen slag flying. The Water Elemental General normally halved incoming physical damage, so it rarely feared ordinary strikes. But the skeleton's attack stats were exceptionally high, enough to overwhelm that defense, especially when they hit with an explosive skill. The blow tore through it and it howled, a sound that was part scream, part roar. A faint blue light flared across its form and condensed into countless ice arrows that shot into the air. Ability: Ice Whirlwind. The frostbolt slammed down with brutal force, knocking several skeletons off their feet. The arrows spun into a whirling vortex around the Water Elemental General, a freezing cyclone that kept the skeletons from closing in. Lin Moyu watched and gave a quick order. Fall back, out of its skill range. The skeletons obeyed, retreating just beyond the whirlwind's reach to regroup. One of the skeleton warriors' biggest weaknesses was their susceptibility to crowd control effects. As the whirlwind intensified, the area of the 6113 skill expanded rapidly until it covered nearly the entire room. Alarmed, Lin Moyu watched as every skeleton warrior vanished at once. He and Ning Yi slipped back inside the ice palace together. Ice arrows rattled against the palace walls with a series of sharp cracks. It took a full minute for the noise to fade. The skill had run its course. Lin Moyu stepped back into the chamber where the water elemental general stood and narrowed his eyes. Its wounds had vanished. What the skeletons had managed to tear apart a moment ago was fully healed now. What a nuisance, Ningyi muttered, watching the general return to normal. One burst of that skill had not only repelled the skeletons, but healed the elemental as well. "Don't come out," Lin Moyu said quietly. "I have a plan." Ningyi nodded. If Lin Moyu said he had a solution, she trusted him. The skeleton warrior reappeared and struck the water elemental general again. Its great blade came down in relentless iron-on-iron blows that rang out with a crisp clang. The water elemental general answered with a roar. Ice arrows sprang up, circling it and coalescing into a howling frostbolt whirlwind. The storm of arrows widened, and its powerful shockwave kept other skeletons from closing in. Lin Moyu immediately stowed the skeleton and charged straight into the whirlwind without hesitation. The bone armor covering him gleamed as it absorbed the barrage of ice bolts. He ignored the skill's knockback effect and pushed through. The frostbolt whirlwind covered a wide area, but was surprisingly thin. Outside the gale, the arrows screamed, while inside the eye it was eerily calm. He passed through the storm and released the skeleton again. Wordlessly, the skeleton lifted its blade and smashed into the enemy. The frostbolt whirlwind continued to rage, its reach spreading to every corner of the chamber. After hearing Lin Moyu's words, Ningyi withdrew into the ice palace and did not come back out. The skeleton warrior slammed its bones together with a clattering cheer, and the water elemental general shrieked. Moments later, the frostbolt dissolved and reformed into a swarm of smaller water elementals. The general's wounds knitted back before their eyes, but this time the healing was only partial. Many injuries remained, and the skeleton warrior had shoved him off balance. His breathing grew ragged. Lin Moyu allowed himself a small nod. He'd made the right call. A blue light crawled across the water general's body, and a thick column of water erupted from him. The current twisted faster and faster, and in under 2 seconds it swelled into a towering wall. Ability activated. Flooding. The massive wave bore down straight at them, bristling with churning water and writhing elementals. Where his previous spell had been control, this was a pure offensive surge. Without a control effect to stop it, flooding would be lethal. The skeleton warrior blinked out in an instant. Unnecessary now. Lin Moyu could handle this alone. He didn't dodge. Instead, he planted his feet and took the hit, relying on his bone armor, its protection equivalent to 78,000 physical defense, and braced himself against the onrush. Huge waves slammed one after another. Lin Moyu stood his ground amid the surf. After 5 consecutive strikes, the water finally calmed, and the skeleton warriors reappeared to continue their assault on the city. This time, the water elemental general didn't stand a chance. Within 2 minutes, it was smashed into shards of ice. Even the throne beneath it was shattered. Kill level 37, Water Elemental General. Experience, 1 Tavan. Obtain, Water Element Crystal Nucleus 10. When the notifications popped up, Ningyi hurried out of the ice palace, a bright smile on her face. To her, Lin Moyu was the best. The experience reward was enormous. Even if it had to be shared between 2 people, 1.48 million was still massive, and the 10 crystal nuclei alone could be sold for around 1 million gold coins. With the water elemental general gone, the environment changed noticeably. Lin Moyu felt the elemental chaos that had been making them uneasy begin to ease. Ningyi nodded in agreement. Feeling the relief, Lin Moyu tried to summon the skeleton mage. The water skeleton mage could already cast spells, the other types lagged behind. Lin Moyu guessed it had something to do with mastery of the water element. They pushed across the broken ice and descended deeper into the secret realm. A blast of heat hit them like a wall. The landscape had shifted. This place was a world of flames. The air itself burned, and the space around them had turned into a sea of fire. The moment they stepped in, the skeletal armor reacted. Outside, the silver-white bone armor materialized, gleaming as it shielded them from the blaze. Its shimmering plates resisted the heat. Any other class that wandered in here would suffer severe burns. They had already passed through the world of water. Now they stood in the world of fire. Lin Moyu wondered which elemental realm would come next. Wind, thunder, and lightning, perhaps. He dismissed the skeletal warrior. This was an environment of constant, unavoidable damage. No place to send a marching horde of fragile minions. Ning Yi, on the other hand, seemed delighted by the little tongues of flame that licked the ground. She treated them like a toy, stepping on the tiny fires every so often with a laugh. The bone armor kept her unharmed. To be safe, Lin Moyu reforged the bone armor every 2 minutes, topping up and reinforcing it so it always remained at peak condition. With the protective shell maintained, they could press on into whatever elemental trial lay ahead. Just like in the Ice Palace, there was no distinct fire spirit here. It felt as if the elements had reverted to their most primal forms. In the heart of the fire realm, they could see a burning peak from a distance, Flame Mountain. They headed straight for it. After 10 minutes wading through a sea of fire, they reached the mountain's base. Up close, it was almost laughably literal. The mountain was a towering column of flame, a structure made entirely of fire elements. Individual tongues of fire rose 50, maybe 60 meters into the air. From afar, it read as a mountain, but at the foot of it, the heat and motion made its true nature obvious. Ning Yi stared, speechless. She had never seen a blaze like this. "How do you even fight something like that?" she whispered. No sooner had the words left her lips than the flame mountain stirred. A pair of enormous eyes formed in the rolling inferno. Lin Moyu went pale. Those eyes were painfully familiar. They matched, down to the feeling they gave, the eyes of the Flame Demon King he had seen before. Fire Elemental General, Secret Realm Boss. Level 37, Strength, Agility 0, Spirit 20,000, Physique 16,000, Skills, Flam, E-Eruption, Sea of Fire Explosion Characteristics. Physical damage received halved, immune to fire, constantly generates burning effects. Another immobile monster, and it doesn't use physical attacks. With 20,000 spirit and 16,000 physique, its elemental damage was going to be devastating. Fortunately, in version 5.1, it wasn't completely immune to physical attacks, so summoned skeleton fighters could still deal meaningful damage. 150 skeleton warriors burst from the summoning portal and swarmed toward the Fire Elemental General, gathering directly beneath it. The general, massive and immovable like a smoldering hill, responded by belching hundreds of towering pillars of flame. Each pillar detonated in midair, scattering into a hail of fireballs that filled the sky and rained down. Flame Eruption, a full area saturation attack, densely packed and unavoidable. There was no way to dodge it. Everyone on the team had to endure the onslaught. If their defenses were too weak, the entire party would be wiped out. Flames licked up from the skeleton warriors, sizzling as they burned, just as you would expect near a fire element commander. Fire burns. Even when a skeleton lunged at the Fire Elemental General, it took damage in return. The flames flared back, so close proximity alone scorched bone and armor. Still, the skeletons kept attacking. Their enhanced attributes gave them extraordinary defense and resilience, letting them endure the burning and press the assault. At that moment, a group of water element skeleton mages floated into view and began to chant, their spells already unfurling toward the fiery center of the clash. Chapter 147, Wind Power Elemental Body, the Oriole is behind. Lin Moyu released all 28 water-type skeleton mages at once. In the chaotic environment of the elemental realm, once the water elemental general had been defeated, only those water skeleton mages were able to cast spells. They unleashed their skill in unison. Ice Storm. Ice fell like a cold rain onto the fire elemental general, sending up thick plumes of steam. The fire general roared and counterattacked again and again. Columns of flame sprayed out continually, turning the sky into a rain of fire. Thanks to their elemental resistance, elemental damage to the skeletons and to Lin Moyu was cut to 1/3. The skeletons looked as if they were engulfed in flames, but the actual harm they suffered was minimal. Because the fire general's attacks carried no control effects, there was little to fear. Clad in bone armor, Lin Moyu and Ning Yi stood in the firestorm without taking any damage. Meanwhile, the fire elemental grew progressively weaker, its wounds mounting, its body shrinking, its flames dimming. It realized its life was in danger, and its roar climbed into a frenzy. Skill, Sea of Fire explosion. The world's fire elements erupted at once. The ground convulsed and cracked, as if a magnitude 10 earthquake had struck. Lin Moyu flung herself over Ningyi to steady her as the air around them flashed with heat. Every fire element converged, thrusting countless pillars of flame upward until the battlefield became a literal sea of fire. In the next instant, the inferno detonated, an ear-splitting, all-consuming blast. Ningyi was stunned by the sudden concussion and clapped her hands over her ears. Explosions followed in rapid succession, and in a blink, the whole elemental plane was swallowed by the violence. The blast hurled skeletons through the air, but Lin Moyu and Ningyi held their ground, braced by the skeleton armor and standing as immovable as a mountain. General Fire Element completed its final desperate explosion, but it didn't do the job. When the smoke cleared and it fell back to the battlefield, the skeleton warriors surged forward again, pressing the attack. With its energies spent, General Fire Element could no longer resist. It let out a pained, wailing scream and shattered into pieces. The flames danced like fireworks, blooming one last time in a brilliant display. Kill the level 37 Fire Elemental General, experience 1004 Narjan. Obtain Fire Element Crystal Nucleus 10. The elemental left no corpse, only scattered clusters of burning embers where its presence had been. With the general gone, the realm of fire still existed, but its power had been greatly diminished. The chaotic currents of elemental energy smoothed out, and even the fire skeleton mages could cast their spells without interference. What element will be next? Ningyi murmured, squinting at the air. Lin Moyu had already felt it. Wind, a mutable element, ever-changing, sometimes a gentle breath, sometimes a savage gale. They passed through the dying heat of the fire realm and stepped into the domain of the wind element. At the gate of the elemental secret realm, a 5-person party stood waiting. 1 knight, 2 supports, and 2 damage dealers, a textbook team composition. They wore the distinctive uniforms of the Bangzi Kingdom's professional adventurers, a style that seemed like a blend of the Shenxia Empire and the Sakura Kingdom. Most of them were plainly ordinary in appearance, nothing striking to note. "Boss, I didn't expect we'd be the ones to find it," one of the team members murmured, staring at the entrance. The mouth of the elemental secret realm stood before them, the place they'd been tracking for days. But something was off. "They said these realms are swarming with elemental spirits," another said. "Why is it empty?" Several of them exchanged puzzled looks. The entrance didn't match the reports. It felt wrong. Park Yingchang stepped forward and studied the gateway. "Someone's already been in," he said calmly. "You sure?" A junior ASCII. Park nodded. "Yes, the elemental residue is still faint. They came through not long ago. Let them open the way for us. We'll save ourselves some effort." "So we wait?" someone asked impatiently. "What if they kill the final boss before we get there?" "As long as we arrive before they finish it, we'll be fine," Park replied with a grin. "You know the saying back in the kingdom of Shenxia, the mantis catches the cicada, but the oriole is behind. Today will be the oriole." His confidence broke the tension and drew a few nervous laughs. "Boss is right," another chimed in. "No need to rush. If they clear the path, we'll swoop in and take the prize." Park's expression hardened with determination. "Exactly. As long as we get the final boss's head, everything else is negotiable. It's best if they fight to the death. We finish them off with the boss." "Good idea." The 5 of them went into the dungeon talking and laughing, faces relaxed. When I stepped into the instance, I saw a vast ice palace looming ahead. The party's mage raised a hand and cast a skill. A sharp, crisp sound rang out and ripples spread through the frozen halls. After a moment, the mage's eyes lit up. "I found a path. Follow me." Lin Moyu and Ningyi pushed on into a domain of wind elementals. The wind here was wildly changeable. One moment it was a spring breeze, gentle and caressing. The next it was like a blade, cold and biting, threatening to slash through armor and bone. Ningyi suddenly grabbed Lin Moyu's sleeve and pointed into the air. "There are so many." Pale blue cloud-like shapes drifted across the sky, but on closer look they weren't clouds at all. They were gatherings of wind spirits, huddled and overlapping until they looked cloud-like. No sooner had Ningyi noticed them than the spirits noticed her. The cluster exploded, and a dense swarm of wind elementals filled the air, closing in around the two of them. Winds whipped around them, coalescing into a towering tornado that swirled with furious speed. Lin Moyu and Ning Yi stood in its eye as pellets of compressed air, little wind balls, fired out from the maelstrom and pelted them like hail. It felt as if the storm itself had singled them out. The skeletal armor cloaking Lin Moyu flashed with an eerie light and took every hit. With a casual flick of his finger, he unleashed a cadre of skeleton mages, and the 46 skeleton mages aligned with water and fire answered his call and moved to meet the wind spirits. Lin Moyu spread his palm and invoked a spell. A vast crimson net dropped through the air. Skill, slow curse. The tornado dissolved where it stood, and blood-red shackles sprang onto the heads of each wind elemental. Their movements dragged to a crawl. Their speed was reduced 39-fold. Even the swiftest of them were effectively frozen in place. The skeleton warriors surged upward, battering the slowed spirits in midair. The 46 mages continued to chant, sending bolts of water and fire that tore through the stalled gusts. One after another, the wind elementals were torn apart until, in the space of a heartbeat, hundreds of them lay scattered and broken. Boom! A thunderstorm rattled the wind elemental realm. Clouds tore themselves apart, each fragment becoming a wind spirit. The spirits paid no attention to Lin Moyu and Ning Yi. Instead, they surged together toward a single point. Lin Moyu frowned. Something's wrong. Ning Yi looked at him in puzzlement. What is it? He pointed ahead. Floating in midair was a vast black mass, and countless elemental spirits were being drawn into it like water down a drain. A thunderclap split the sky and lightning laced the clouds. The noise and light made Ning's eyes widen in disbelief. That's a storm, Lin said. The wind and electrical elements have combined, but there's no rain, only fierce winds and constant lightning. Without hesitation, Lin sent out a detection technique to probe the strange phenomenon. Wind Thunder Elemental Body, Secret Realm Boss. Level 38, Strength, Agility 5,000, Spiritual Power. 25,000, Physique 20,000, Skills, Lightning, Gale, Wind and Thunder Bombardment. Traits, Physical attack damage halved, immune to wind and lightning elements. A titanic fusion of wind and lightning, the elemental body rolled toward Lin Moyu like a living storm. With 0 strength, it had no real physical attacks. Its danger came from raw elemental power. Although it registered 5,000 agility, its enormous size kept its movements lumbering rather than nimble. What mattered was the 25,000 spiritual power behind it. The entity was enormous, over 200 meters across, an oppressive presence that distorted the air. Even at a distance of thousands of meters, the wind it stirred was already unbearable, a razor-edged pressure that cut through the plane. Lin Moyu's bone armor flared white, a protective glow that steadied him against the onslaught. Then, with a thunderous crack, lightning arced across the gap from 1,000 meters away and danced along the surface of the skeletal armor in a brilliant curve. The skeletal warrior answered the call and hurtled toward the wind elemental form at several hundred meters per second. Lin Moyu lifted a hand and a shaft of red light descended. With a low buzzing, enormous iron shackles materialized around the elemental. It hadn't been especially fast to begin with, but now it was brought almost to a halt, hanging sluggishly in the air. Chapter 148, The Difficult Queen of Elements. A deafening boom split the air as 10,000 bolts of lightning rained down. The strikes were so dense they hit every skeleton warrior on the field. The slow curse could dull their reactions, but it did almost nothing against lightning, even slowed 39 times. Lightning is absurdly fast and utterly unavoidable. The bolts struck again and again, punishing the undead with relentless damage. Skill Lightning, the caster announced, and the storm intensified. Meanwhile, 46 skeleton mages closed to range, unleashing their own spells. Ability, Explosion Flame. Ability, Ice Storm. Fire and water assaulted the wind elemental form from opposite sides, each spell battering at its ephemeral body. Another massive volley of lightning smashed into the mages. One skeleton warrior launched himself through the bombardment, and while airborne, triggered his skills and slashed at the elemental with his knife. The wind elemental's form split open in huge rifts, pieces torn away, and yet it did not stop. Even bloodied and ruptured, it kept fighting. The elemental body trembled, wounded and constantly shuddering as it tried to mend itself. Sandisk became even more ferocious, hammering the skeleton warriors with dense, relentless attacks. The fight had turned into a brutal contest of strength. No fancy techniques, no subtle tactics, just whoever was tougher would win. A gust began to howl, building into a crushing wind pressure that slammed into the skeletons. The storm formation rose up and widened the distance, putting the skeleton warriors out of range. They couldn't strike back. The second weakness of the skeletons, of course, was that they couldn't fly. A small flame flickered in Lin Moyu's palm. The soul flame that had been dormant for so long flared back to life. He let an almost imperceptible spark slip into the elemental body. The elemental construct was over 200 meters across. The soul flame was no larger than a fingernail in comparison, insignificant in size, but immeasurably potent in effect. The elemental body convulsed. The entire storm formation shuddered. The lightning gust collapsed as if it had hit a wall. The vortex began to warp, the edges tearing and distorting, showing the first real signs of failure. Lin Moyu's eyes gleamed. After a moment's thought, he understood why. The wind element construct before me had been created by fusing lightning and wind. The two elements never melded perfectly. There was always a structural flaw, and the soul flame struck straight at its spirit core, ripping that weakness open. Disintegrating it from the inside proved far more effective than any external blow. The soul flames roared on as Lin Moyu kept issuing commands and using his skills. The elemental body convulsed and warped, the storm finally beginning to collapse. The lightning blinked out and the wind died down. His skeleton warriors and skeleton mages seized the moment and pressed their attacks. Within 10 seconds, the storm construct shredded apart. Killed level 38 wind power element body, experience plus 520,000. Acquired wind element crystal nucleus. Acquired electric element crystal nucleus. When the smoke cleared, the sea was calm again. The elemental turbulence had vanished, and Lin Moyu's skeleton mages had recovered from the disruption. He dismissed his summoned skeletons. Each of them bore the scars of the fight. Ningyi jumped up, grinning. Finally, it's gone. She could tell Lin Moyu hadn't had an easy time. The skeleton warrior was only level 26, but the opponent had been a level 38 boss. A barrage of skills had fallen on them, and the skeleton showed clear signs of damage. Still, Lin Moyu had dealt with it. He tugged her along. Come on, let's go see the boss. They stepped from the wind element field into the electric realm. The electric zone was surprisingly small, only about 100 meters in radius. Currents crackled through the air, dark clouds churned overhead, and lightning kept striking. Even though Lin Moyu had Sly, and the electric element's leader, the elemental power continued to ravage Fang Tiandi. He knew the leader he'd killed would reappear before long. That was how these elemental bosses worked. The same went for the Secret Realm's final adversary, the Queen of Elements. Secret Realms had opened countless times over the years, and the Queen had been slain countless times as well. Whenever the Secret Realm reappeared, so would the Queen of Elements. As long as the elemental plane endured, she could never truly be destroyed. Clad in bone armor, Lin Moyu and Ningyi clasped hands as they moved through the electric domain. Lightning cracked around them, but it left no mark, unable to disturb the protective field or harm them. Ningyi was treated to a rare, breathtaking sight. Her eyes sparkled like stars, and her love for Lin Moyu only deepened. After crossing a 100-meter expanse, they entered a long corridor. Beyond it rose a transparent palace, and on its throne sat the Queen of Elements. 4 bands of elemental energy circled her like rings of starlight, turning and shimmering with impossible beauty. It's gorgeous, Ningyi breathed. Beautiful as the rings were, it was a pity. They surrounded a monster, and a dangerous one at that. A skeleton warrior charged forward, followed by a skeleton mage, their bones clacking as they advanced. The Queen of Elements hissed sharply, the sound echoing through the secret realm. The elemental rings around her body began to vibrate violently. A floating nameplate appeared, Queen of Elements, level 40. A single, piercing neigh exploded outward, a shockwave that hit like a physical blow. The skeleton warrior faltered for a half-second under the impact, then kept charging. Lin Moyu felt a thrill of awe. That sound was only the Queen of Elements' most basic move, not even a true attack, and yet it had stopped the skeleton warrior in its tracks. If something that simple could do that, this fight was going to be difficult. Ningyi was trembling beside him, her small hands clenched so tight they were white, sweat beaded on her forehead. Lin Moyu looked at the Queen of Elements stats as they flickered into view. Secret Realm Leader, level 39. Power, 20,000. Physique, 20,000. Agility, 5,000. Skills, Elemental Bombardment, Elemental Star. Special traits, Physical damage taken halved, Elemental damage taken halved. These were the highest attributes he'd ever seen. 3 of the Queen's primary stats hit 20,000. Only her agility was notably lower, and even that was only a little below the skeleton warriors. On top of that, she cut incoming physical and elemental damage in half. Lin Moyu realized with a sinking feeling that this was far from a straightforward fight. We have to rely on the boss's super vitality, Lin Moyu thought, steeling himself. This fight wouldn't be easy. There was no turning back now. The skeleton warriors surged toward the elemental queen. Before they could close in, the queen moved first. Elemental Starburst. 4 halos, each representing a different element, flared around her at once and detonated in a single, deafening burst. The dozen or so skeletons at the front were hurled backward, their bones splintered and cracked, as if they would shatter entirely the next second. Lin Moyu's face tightened. In an instant, the lead skeleton was critically wounded. He wasted no time and recalled the damaged skeleton into the summoning space. But the enemy responded immediately. Slow curse! A nasty, buzzing incantation rang out. The curse struck the elemental queen, enshrouding her and drastically sapping her speed. As the queen staggered under the effect, one of the skeleton warriors closed the distance, hefted a massive blade, and launched into an all-out assault. Frenzied Strike! The skeleton warrior's stats were through the roof, an attribute value of 21,000, with its skill boosted another 200%. Raw power. The elemental queen screamed when she was struck. Skill, Elemental Bombardment, she cried, lifting the twin appendages on her back. Streams of elemental energy surged forth like tidal waves and slammed into the skeletons. Dozens of skeleton warriors were tossed into the air, their bones cracking under the force. What a powerful skill, someone breathed. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. By the time Lin Moyu's curse landed, the queen's bombardment had already finished. He recalled the wounded skeleton warrior, and his palm flamed up as he prepared his next move. Skill, Soul Flame. The soul fire seared the elemental queen, and she howled in pain. The skeleton mage's assault followed, pressing the queen on all sides. She screamed again and again, then a new pair of arms sprouted from her back. A ring of stars formed around them, and each arm glowed with a different element: wind, fire, water, and lightning, 1 element per limb. Skill, Elemental Starburst. The fire element star ring detonated, spitting a column of flame into the sky. Several skeleton warriors were hurled head over heels, their brittle bones cracking under the blast. No sooner had one ring detonated than another skill triggered. A wind element star ring burst outward, the gale like a blade, flipping more skeletons through the air. The star rings kept erupting in rapid succession, each explosion sending the undead flying. The Queen of Elements barely moved, just a flick of her fingers and a graceful lift of her hand, and her elemental power did all the work. Wave after wave of abilities radiated from her, battering the skeleton warriors until they were shredded or blown apart. The slow curse seemed to have been broken. Whatever slowness it inflicted had no effect on the queen's relentless onslaught. From the start of the fight to now had been no more than 5 seconds. In that time, over 30 skeletons had been grievously damaged. Lin Moyu recalled their still smoking corpses back into the summoning space with a thought. He couldn't help but think, this is brutal. He still didn't understand why Bai Yuan had set him such a daunting task. Bai's expectations felt far beyond his reach. But regardless of how impossible it seemed, he had to see it through. Lin Moyu's palm flared red. The soul flame answered his command and surged outward again. The soul flame still managed to land a solid blow on the Queen of Elements. The skeleton warrior and skeleton mage pressed the attack, oblivious that there were established ways to deal with a creature like the queen. Veteran hands had long ago worked out methods for handling elemental queens. The details were even on file at Fortress Number 3. But Lin Moyu, blunt and straightforward by nature, never stopped to check them. After all, when it came to positive element mastery, Lin Moyu was widely regarded as the best of his age. Park Yingchang and his group finally pushed through the last patch of electric element territory. A few of them emerged with singed hair and the faint, unpleasant scent of scorched flesh. The healer hurried over to patch them up while they still had a moment to breathe. From a distance, they could see the Queen of Elements in the middle of a fight. "Boss, they've engaged," someone reported. "Hold them," the boss ordered. "Stop whatever they're doing, even if it means you can't kill the queen right away." "Little Fa, zoom in," the mage called. The mage replied at once and fell into a chant. He mouthed the incantation in silence as patterns of starlight traced themselves beneath his feet and raw power began to surge outward. Ning Yi felt the shift in energy and turned. Hundreds of meters away, she saw Pu Yingchang and his companions approaching. Her pretty face froze. She sprinted over and yelled to Lin Moyu, "Watch out! Someone's sneaking up!" She had barely finished speaking when the sky tore open with a massive magical burst. A barrage of blazing meteors began to fall, each one a searing ball of fire. A system notification flashed. "Skill activated. Meteor fire destroys the world." The first meteor slammed into the ground with overwhelming force, setting off one violent explosion after another. The mage in Pu Yingchang's party had only just reached rank 2, becoming a blazing mage who specialized in fire, and he had just unlocked his first large-scale skill, Meteor Fire Destroys the World. It was devastating. Within its roughly 30-second duration, it could wipe out opponents in an instant. Even players of equal level could be grievously injured if they weren't prepared. He'd chosen to use it as a sneak attack. Lin Moyu's bone armor flared, blocks of skeletal plating flickering as they absorbed blast after blast. When a meteor struck him directly, the armor shuddered but held, protecting him from the full force of the impact. The meteorite slammed into the field, striking one skeleton warrior after another, and leaving many of them injured. The ones who had just completed the second rank at level 40 were in a different league. Their attack power had changed dramatically. Level 39 and level 40 were worlds apart. Through the fissure left by the explosion, Lin Moyu caught sight of Park Yingchang, and a smile tugged at his lips. Perfect timing, he thought. At his command, the injured skeletons he'd been keeping in reserve sprang forward. The bone warriors hefted their greatswords and charged straight for Park Yingchang and his party. Skeletal mages followed close behind, training their staves and spells on Park Yingchang. "Ashi! What is this?" Park Yingchang cried out in surprise. "Axi, did you mess up? Where did all these undead come from?" Another shouted. "The elemental queen has minions? Since when? I've never heard of that." Voices rose in alarm as everyone scrambled to prepare. The prophet had already activated his buffs, and the mages were raising their staves, readying themselves for the fight. The archers on the team drew their bowstrings. Their arrows glowed faintly as they prepared to fire. Suddenly, a shaft of red light flashed across the battlefield. Red shackles materialized above every teammate's head. "What's happening?" someone shouted. Park Yingchang staggered, his movements slowing. "Curse! A curse!" The healers reacted immediately, beginning to cast dispel spells to break it. But at the same moment, the skeleton mage's attack struck, and it was aimed straight at the healers. Lin Moyu remembered his last encounter with Rogers and the lesson he'd learned then. A curse could be lifted, but only if the caster was allowed to finish. The enemy clearly knew that too. The skeleton mage concentrated on interrupting the healing. The healer's casts were disrupted. Dozens of magical bolts slammed into the nearest medic almost at once. In a single volley, the healer went down, barely clinging to life. Park Yingchang, still under the curse, couldn't protect him as the skeleton warriors charged. Park fumbled for a potion, uncorked it, and drank. The red shackles vanished from his head. The curse was broken. He roared out 2 skill commands in quick succession. Skill, group provocation. Skill, group chain. Both skills detonated. The skeletons that had been surging forward snapped their attention toward Park and bore down on him instead. Dozens of invisible energy chains shot out and yanked one of the skeleton warriors off balance. Ying Puchang planted himself in front of the skeleton and met it head-on, raising his shield. He barked, "Drink the antidote, clear the curse." He'd been fighting for a long time alongside his teammates. He swallowed the cure to lift the curse from himself and splashed some on the healer as well. The moment the curse broke, the healer cast an instant heal spell. Ying's wounds knitted together at once. Another wave of attacks slammed in. "Group protection!" Ying shouted. The knight's skill flared to life. An energy shield bloomed over the party and absorbed the skeleton mage's strike. "They're already level 40, Ning Yi observed, watching the battlefield. "Knights get group protection and group chains at that level. The mage's sneak attack, that world-consuming fire, is also a post-second turn, level 40 skill." Across from them, Lin Moyu nodded and tried to cast the curse again. It fizzled against their defenses. Ying Puchang had given everyone the curse antidote potion. It granted temporary immunity, so the second attempt did nothing. Ying didn't even take a step back. He stood like a bulwark while more than 30 skeleton warriors surged at him, holding the line so his teammates could breathe. The enemy healer kept spamming cures on him. Lin Moyu watched it and realized why he'd been able to take Rogers down so easily before. The opponent's level hadn't been that much higher than his own, and in the Hell Dungeon, the enemy's storage space had been sealed off so they couldn't use any items. Out here, though, level 40 professionals were powerful, and they could use potions and scrolls. Equipment gaps mattered too. It wasn't going to be easy. Still, what needed killing would be killed. In the surprise attack a moment ago, if it hadn't been for his skeleton armor, Lin Moyu would have been badly wounded, maybe even dead. The enemy was ruthless. The skeleton mage poured on the firepower, trying to suppress their opponents. Park Yingchang ground his teeth. "How are they this strong?" "Captain, what do we do?" the mage cried, voice tight with panic. Their blows landed on the skeleton warrior and did inflict heavy damage, but the creature wouldn't go down easily. The archer's expression matched the mage's unease. All around them, they were being hammered by massive magical assaults. The party was battered so relentlessly that they could barely keep their heads up. Park Yingchang already had a twinge of regret. He should never have picked a fight with this opponent. He hadn't expected them to be this strong. Even while dealing with the Queen of Elements, the enemy still had the freedom to harass him. "Retreat," someone muttered. "It looks like that's our only option," Park answered, about to pull back. Then Lin Moyu strode forward. A striking, beautiful woman walked at his side. Lin lifted his hand, and a flare of fire burst to life in his palm. A scream cut through the chaos. Their healer was hit mid-cast. The healing spell shattered. Park felt the pressure on him spike. A skeleton warrior's blow slammed against his shield, metal and bone clashing in a constant, ringing din. The force drove through the shield and rattled him so hard he felt sick to his stomach. The healer staggered and managed to slap a fragile heal onto Park, but Lin struck again. Another agonized scream. The healer crumpled to the ground, head in his hands. The mage and the archer opened up on Lin at once, desperate to stop him, but a coat of bone armor rippled across Lin's form and deflected their attacks. All the while, that sickly, otherworldly soul flame continued to burn, licking at the battlefield and leaving a wake of terror in its heat. After 5 consecutive strikes, the healer finally collapsed. With their support gone, Park Yingchang could no longer hold the line. "Retreat," he yelled. No sooner had the command left his mouth than an explosion rocked the area. Park screamed as the blast tore through him. Blood covered his armor. He glanced back and saw that all his teammates were dead. A cold dread went through him. The skeleton warrior's broadsword clattered from numb hands to the ground. There was no time to hesitate. Park activated his signature skill, Extreme Defense, instantly surrounding himself in a protective glow. He fumbled for a potion, knocked back the contents, and turned to flee. With the shield of Extreme Defense blazing around him, he plunged into the lightning-strewn domain and ran toward the horizon, pushing against crackling bolts of energy. Lin Moyu did not pursue. A knight with his mind set on escape was impossible to catch. Behind him, the skeleton warrior hoisted the dead prophet, archer, and mage across its back and lumbered on, heading straight for the Queen of Elements. Chapter 150, Battlefield Number 3, Distress Signal. A corpse arcs through the air toward the Queen of Elements. Skill, corpse burst. The corpse detonated mid-flight, and the queen screamed in the blast. The fight had reached a fever pitch. More than half of the skeleton warriors were damaged, and the queen herself had taken serious injuries. It was a clash of life and death. Then Lin Moyu triggered another corpse explosion. The queen, still reeling, was hit again as two more corpses flew through the air and detonated against her. Boom, boom. Her condition worsened. 3 of her 4 arms had been blown off. Of the 4 elemental star rings she wore, only the wind ring was left intact. It stung that the knight had fled a moment earlier. If he had been there, his corpse burst would almost certainly have finished the queen. His vitality was the strongest, and his explosion would have been the most powerful. That chance had been lost. Lin Moyu threw everything into the assault. Every skeleton fighter and skeleton mage was released, and he unleashed the soul flame. The battlefield erupted again as he pressed the advantage, determined to finish what he had started. After the final onslaught, the elemental queen collapsed to the ground, defeated. Quest complete. Kill the Queen of Elements. Item acquired: Elemental Crystal. Elemental Crystal can be used to craft top-tier platinum equipment, enchant platinum gear, or as a material for upgrading a cooling amulet. Getting 5 crystals at once was incredibly lucky. The usual drop was 3, sometimes 4, and even 4 was rare. Bai Yuan only needed 1 for a quest. The other 4 could be kept. Upgrading the cooling amulet would be useful for 223. With the queen's death, the secret realm began to fade. Lin Moyu and Ning Yi stepped back out onto the elemental plane. Ning Yi exhaled in relief. It's finally over. Lin Moyu nodded, then turned his attention to the summoned skeletons. Most of them had been severely wounded in the fight and would need to return to the summoning space to recuperate. Oi! Ning Yi suddenly cried out. What's wrong? Lin Moyu asked, turning to look, puzzled. I forgot to take the gear off those guys, Ning Yi said. The secret realm's gone now? Lin Moyu replied. So is their equipment. It all disappeared with it. Lin Moyu looked surprised. So you're not short on money? Ning Yi shook her head. I'm not the one who's short. You are. You'll need a lot of money to buy all the skill scrolls. She grinned. But don't worry. I'll buy them for you when the time comes. My grandpa has money. You can ask him. If Ning Tyron heard that, he'd probably spit blood. His precious granddaughter wasn't even married yet, and she was already dangling her grandfather's money at another man. Lin Moyu smiled despite himself and reached up to pat her head. You look tired. Let's rest for a bit and eat something before we go. Okay. Ning Yi's stomach agreed loudly. They set up a small fire. Lin Moyu had picked up how to roast meat from Shi Xing'an, learned the right seasonings and techniques, and the meat itself, bought from the exchange, was good quality. He grilled the strips carefully, turning them until the fat sizzled and the edges caramelized. Ning Yi ate a piece and closed her eyes, her face breaking into a delighted crescent moon smile. We'll have barbecue sometime, okay? Lin Moyu chuckled softly. Okay? Ning Yi's smile grew even brighter. She leaned lazily against Lin Moyu and gazed up at the stars. On the elemental plane there was no mist to cloud the view. The night sky was filled with pinpricks of light, even clearer than over the brightly lit city. It felt as beautiful as Ning Yi's mood. But at the far edge of the plane, the scenery changed abruptly. The ground grew dark, and black vapors rose and smeared into the air. A sour, rotten smell drifted across the grasslands as the power of the abyss seeped forward, pressing against the elemental plane as if trying to invade it. Grotesque, otherworldly creatures prowled in that shadowed band. They stared hungrily at the plane, but could not cross into it. They seemed oddly to be kept back by, and even fearful of, the elemental plane itself. Lin Moyu watched them closely and recalled the files he'd read in the library. Abyssal beings came in 2 broad kinds. One was the demon kings, the devils he remembered from the texts, intelligent, capable of thought, and cunning much like humans. The creature in front of him was just another monster, the same kind of mindless beast that roamed the human world. These things had little to no intelligence. On the land near the abyss, they were simply called monsters, in contrast to demons. Both monster and demon slaying earned military merits, but demon kills were worth far more. The abyssal dog Lin Moyu had killed earlier had been a level 31 monster, and had only granted a single merit point. The level 35 abyssal beast before him now would also yield only 1 merit. By comparison, killing a level 36 abyssal demon would award 100 merit points, a staggering difference. Bai Yuan's task had been to eliminate abyssal demons, not ordinary monsters. Stepping out of the element plane, Lin Moyu re-entered the Yuan battlefield. Because this sector was close to Fortress Number 3, it was called Battlefield Number 3. The area he had been to before had been Battlefield Number 1. A fog rolled in again, thicker than the haze near the fortress gates. The closer you got to the abyss, the thicker the fog became. Ningyi pulled off her elemental mask and took 2 deep breaths. The smell down here is awful. It was a rotten stench that made her skin crawl. Lin Moyu didn't like it either, but running wasn't an option, so they had to learn to tolerate it. Sooner or later, they would have to face the abyss directly, maybe even go inside. That was part of being a human professional. Their arrival hadn't gone unnoticed. Several nearby creatures turned and charged. A skeleton warrior strode forward, and among the attackers was an Abyss Eater. Abyss Eater, level 35, power 6,000, agility 5,000, spirit 3,000, physique 6,000. Skill, Roar the Abyss Eater was a very common abyss monster, only slightly stronger than an abyssal dog, and far weaker than a level 36 abyssal dog. These low-level creatures were everywhere in the abyss. You couldn't hope to kill them all. Lin Moyu's skeleton warriors cut through them easily, dispatching each one in 2 or 3 blows. Kill, level 35 abyss man-eating monster, X plus 75,000, military merit. Item obtained. It wasn't much of a surprise, just the single point of military merit. Ning Yi cocked an eyebrow. With me tagging along, you'll have to split both the experience and the military merit with me. Don't tell me you'll regret it later, she teased, lifting her chin to show off the pale curve of her neck. Lin Moyu only ruffled her hair and said nothing. His silence said more than words. Around them the field was full of abyss devourers. He could see dozens of professionals, human fighters and mages, engaged in skirmishes with the creatures. Even though each kill only rewarded 1 point of military merit, collecting them added up, and the area felt comparatively safe so long as they didn't push farther into the abyss. The real danger came from running into an abyss demon. Those beasts could command the lesser monsters, directing swarms to encircle and overwhelm human teams. That was why most human professionals clustered close to the element plane, where the terrain and backups made it easier to hold a line. If you were in danger, you could slip into the elemental plane. Abyssal demons and monsters dared not follow. There were things in that realm that even they feared. Only those who trusted their own strength or a small, tightly knit team would press into the deeper reaches of the battlefield. These teams hunted demons for honor and military merit. People like them were called Witchers. Lin Moyu summoned 5 skeleton warriors to clear the way. There weren't many monsters on the path at Fef, Erst, and what did appear was cut down in seconds. For these encounters, 5 skeletons were just as effective as 50. His destination was the deepest sector of the number 3 battlefield, where the fog grew thickest and the ground lay closest to the abyss. If a demon was going to be anywhere, it would be there. The number 3 battlefield was enormous. The 2 of them walked for half a day before they finally crossed the central area. Past that point, the number of abyssal creatures climbed sharply. Lin Moyu raised 5 more skeletons to bolster his advance. Beyond the center, the presence of ordinary human fighters thinned out dramatically. Most dared not go farther. Only the determined few, the Witchers, continued on into the true darkness. Only a few people could operate here, certainly not a large squad, unless it was a demon hunter supremely confident in his own skill. Ning Yi murmured, "I don't know when we'll run into the abyss demons. They hide deeper than mice." Lin Moyu glanced ahead and replied calmly, "I'll be with you." They made painfully slow progress. In less than half a day, their combined military merits rose by only 50 points. That meant they'd killed well over 100 abyssal creatures and still gained almost nothing. Lin Moyu's face grew serious. Something felt wrong. Energy pulses ahead fluctuated wildly, and then a cluster of lights suddenly flared into the sky. Distress signal. Something's happened up ahead. Chapter 151. Your screams will be the best seasoning. The distress signal flared like a second moon, slicing through the sky and bathing battlefield number 3 in cold, silver light. The fog was thick, but it could not hide the beacon. It picked out a clear circle that reached for dozens of miles. Not far. Let's go, Lin Moyu said, and they both broke into a run. No matter how fierce the rivalries between squads or individuals, helping comrades in distress was a different matter. On the front lines, responders answered distress beacons without question. It was an unspoken rule among professionals, a rule that had kept humanity alive against the abyss so far. The signal was only a few minutes away. They passed through the central sector. Normally, after that point, monsters swarmed. The closer you got, the denser the threat. But as they rushed toward the beacon, Ningyi's skin prickled. "Wait, something's wrong," she muttered. "There aren't any monsters, none of them." They scanned the air and the mist. The battlefield was eerily empty, the usual distant roars and skittering sounds replaced by an unnatural hush. A laugh cut through the silence, thin, sharp, and cold, coming from somewhere inside the fog. It's the voice of a demon. It looks like those man-eaters were summoned by a demon. Ningyi's judgment was instant. The 357 abyssal demon had the power to command monsters. These man-eaters had to have been called up by it. The two of them quickened their pace. The man-eater's cries grew louder as he pushed through the thick fog and finally reached the scene. Hundreds of man-eaters swarmed a small group and tore into them. There were 9 people, 2 knights, 3 supports, and 4 damage dealers, an unusual but effective composition. Among the 4 damage dealers were a summoner, a mage, an archer, and a warrior. The warrior was doubling as a second tank, trying to hold the line against the assault. Their team level wasn't low, around 37 or 38, and under normal circumstances they would have every chance to break out. The problem was the abyssal demon hovering above them, striking from the air and keeping tremendous pressure on the knights. Every time they tried to force a way out, the demon intervened and pinned them back. The abyssal demon had a wolf's face. It looked a little like the dog demon, but its presence was completely different. It had no wings of its own. Instead, it rode a massive blue wolf. The blue wolf bore a pair of wings along its back and bared rows of razor-sharp teeth, utterly ferocious. Lin Moyu had seen this creature in the data files before. Its name was Abyssal Wolf Demon. In the Abyss records, wolf demons appeared in great numbers and were always born in pairs. One matured into the wolf demon, the other became the blue wolf mount. The bond between an abyssal wolf demon and its mount, Qinglang, was more like brotherhood. They worked together with uncanny coordination, and their combined fighting strength far outclassed that of the abyss dog demons. Now the abyssal wolf demon was repeatedly stopping the knight's attempts to break through, issuing coarse, taunting cries as if toying with its opponent. Lin Moyu could tell at a glance that if it had wanted to kill them outright, the group wouldn't have lasted this long. She sent out her detection technique in response. Abyssal Wolf Demon, Ordinary Demon. Level 38 Power, 12,000. Agility, 10,000. Physique, 9,000. Skills. Roaring Attack, Bite. It was certainly stronger than the Abyss Dog Demon, but to Lin Moyu, it still wasn't overwhelmingly powerful. The real problem was that it could fly, and it wasn't slow. If it wanted to escape, catching it would be difficult. "Let's lure it down," Lin Moyu said. He and Ningyi exchanged a look, and both understood the plan. Lin Moyu activated his detection technique. The abyssal wolf demon felt it and swung its head to stare at him. Its fangs flashed coldly. A sharp, mocking laugh escaped its muzzle. "Tsk, tsk," it sneered. Finally, someone shows up. A little Lella, Evel 26 fellow, and a girl at level 25. The girl has soft, delicate skin and tender flesh. She'll be delicious. It deliberately surrounded them without finishing them off, waiting, hoping the trapped pair would send out a distress signal. If others came, there would be more to slaughter. The demon's voice carried across the battlefield, reaching the other professionals who were already encircling the area. A chill ran through them. Their faces went pale. Why were level 26s here in a place like this? Do they hand their heads over on a platter from thousands of miles away? The abyssal wolf demon fixed its gaze on Ningyi, licked its fangs, and drooled. "I'll eat you first." It snarled, then lunged at Yi. There was a murderous gleam in its eyes and the glee of a beast expecting a feast. Ning Yi cried out and ducked behind Lin Moyu. "There's no point hiding. Your fate is sealed," the demon mocked. "I'll tear you apart bite by bite. First your hands, then your thighs. I won't let you die until I'm done. Your screams will be the best sauce." It laughed viciously, already seeing Ning Yi as a dish on a plate. What it didn't notice, though, was that Ning Yi's face showed no fear, only a quiet, confident smile. "Boy, go to hell. Don't get in the way of my meal," the demon snarled and charged at Lin Moyu, claws flashing. Cold light ran along those talons, as sharp as any blade. With a thunderous impact, a suit of skeletal armor materialized between them, taking the blow. The demon hesitated in surprise, unable to react for a moment. Then, with a low, electric hum, a red shackle appeared above its head. "What is this?" the demon growled, stunned. Qinglong, the abyssal wolf demon, looked up, but its movements were a fraction of their usual speed. The smaller green wolf beneath it had slowed just as completely. Before it could react, skeleton warriors swarmed in. One of them seized Qinglong's paw, while another's huge blade flared red and sliced at its wings. More skeletons leapt on and clawed up its flanks. Qinglong's scream stretched into a long, unnerving wail that rolled across the clearing. The slowing curse radiated outward. Even the abyssal man-eaters that had been pressing the team were caught in it. One by one, they moved like tortoises. "What's happening?" someone shouted. "Why has everything slowed down?" "This is the power of the curse. Now, break out. It's our chance." With their foes dulled by the curse, the man-eaters' attacks lost their edge and the threat to the team dropped dramatically. The knight wasted no time and led the charge through the gap. Two knights smashed open a path up front, while a berserker was left cut off behind them. Taking advantage of the opening, the team slipped through the monster's weakened ring and escaped the encirclement. They hadn't even left the monster's attack range before a high, keening scream cut through the air. It was the abyssal wolf demon, and then, just as suddenly, it was dead. The demonic beast lay torn apart, its companion green wolf lifeless beside it. The abyssal wolf demon never understood what had happened. It died bewildered, wondering how this little guy, who was obviously only level 26, could be so overwhelmingly powerful. Lin Moyu hadn't rushed forward to strike. He'd simply waited, then unleashed a curse and set his skeleton warriors to explode. The combination did the rest, a few devastating blows, and the demon was finished. Kill, level 38, abyssal wolf demon, experience 30 AUD, skills obtained, devil blood essence. Devil blood essence contains the power of the abyss. Alchemists and blacksmiths can use it to forge equipment. When the rescue team finally broke through the encirclement, they saw the two carcasses and stared in disbelief. "He actually killed it," someone whispered. "How did he do that?" another asked, incredulous. "Isn't he only level 26? Someone whispered. "How much effort did this take, and a demon's just gone like that?" Under their stunned faces, Lin Moyu leaned in and quietly told them, "Everyone, lao back 100 meters. I'm going to clear the area." They froze for a moment, bewildered. Clear the area? Why move back 100 meters? Ning Yi craned her head forward and called out, "Hurry up, move, or you'll get hurt." Despite their doubts, the fact remained. The abyssal wolf demon had been killed in 5.2. It was easier to trust what they could see than what they couldn't. Exchanging uneasy looks, the group reluctantly retreated. By then, the man-eating monsters had closed in. Several summoned skeletons surged forward to meet them, tearing the beasts apart 2 or 3 at a time. "What a powerful attack," someone breathed. True, each man-eating monster wasn't particularly strong. They shouldn't have gone down in just a couple of hits. Then a deafening crack rolled through the air. Everyone flinched as a shockwave slammed past like a gale. When they looked back, the space in front of Lin Moyu was empty. Dozens of man-eating monsters lay scattered on the ground, utterly dead. A stunned silence fell over the onlookers. If that power had hit them, they'd have been crippled, even if they hadn't been killed. Then 2 enormous explosions went off in quick succession. More phagocytologists fell. Someone swallowed hard and whispered, "Where the hell did this guy come from?" "He's only level 26, another said in disbelief. "And he's making this look easy." "His summon's ridiculous, too," a third added. "Does a class like that even exist?" Chapter 152. When you gaze into the abyss gazes back. With a few deft moves, Lin Moyu wiped out hundreds of abyssal man-eaters. Including the abyssal wolf demon, both he and Ning Yi received several hundred military merits apiece. For Lin Moyu, that was a drop in the bucket. At the second lieutenant tier, each one-star upgrade demanded a full 10,000 merits. But for a private like Ning Yi, 100 merits could buy a star. Her insignia flashed as stars popped up one after another. In just half a day, Ning Yi rocketed from a 2-star private to a 6-star private. The speed of her rise drew looks of envy and astonishment. If she kept this pace, reaching second lieutenant wouldn't be out of the question. "Thank you, brother," the rescued civilians kept saying, approaching to express their gratitude to Lin Moyu, whom they'd come to see as the leader of the knights. He was only level 26 on paper, but level meant little compared to what he had just done. Strength commanded respect, and when the situation called for it, force spoke the final word. The people's respect for Lin Moyu was plain and wholehearted. "I'll come if I see the distress signal. Don't worry about it." Lin Moyu's voice was flat and distant. Nobody reacted. They accepted it as a matter of course. A strong person was expected to sound like a strong person. The more powerful someone was, the more likely they were to have an odd temper. Ning Yi craned her head forward. "Are you a hunting team?" she asked. Several heads nodded. "Yes, we're the demon hunting team." "You're supposed to be really strong," Ning said. "Why were you almost wiped out? It was only a level 38 abyssal wolf and a few hundred man-eaters." By reputation, the demon hunting team was formidable. Everyone had exceptional combat power and could take on much harder challenges. So the fact they'd been nearly overwhelmed by what sounded like a mid-level pack seemed strange. The men exchanged uneasy looks, some expression that spoke of things better left unsaid. Finally, the lead knight sighed. "Our unit is officially 12, he said. "Besides the 9 here, we have a great knight, a great elder, and a great mage. But those 3 weren't with us this time," he added. "They left temporarily on another assignment and weren't here when the ambush hit." Their small party had once again attracted the abyssal wolf demon. The 3 in front of him, a great knight, a great mage, and a great elder, were not rare classes. The word great only meant they had passed level 40 and completed a second job change, so they were advanced versions of otherwise common professions. Even ordinary classes gain access to powerful, large-scale abilities after that second transfer. Given time, the Archmage alone could unleash spells like Death of the World and clear hundreds of lesser monsters in an instant. The Great Knight acquires group protection skills and isn't as helpless when surrounded, and the Great Elder learns mass healing spells. Those 3 were unexpectedly the core of the entire demon hunting team. Lin Moyu wasn't interested in their internal matters. "Let's go," she said. "Be careful." After they finished speaking, Lin Moyu and Ning Yi vanished into the thick fog. The soft clicking from the skeletal warrior faded with the mist until it was gone. A moment later, the fog shifted, and 3 figures came rushing over. The foremost, a knight, didn't hesitate to activate his skill and close the distance in an instant, leaping several hundred meters in a single bound. "Are you all right?" he called out. "Why did you send a distress signal? What happened?" He sounded frantic, and when he saw the corpses scattered across the ground, his face went pale. The 3 newcomers were the Great Knight, the Great Elder, and the Great Mage who had left the main group just moments before. They clearly cared for one another. Otherwise, they wouldn't have returned so quickly. Ning Yi took Lin Moyu's large hand and asked, "Aren't you at all curious?" Lin Moyu shook his head. Not curious. He had no interest in other people's gossip. Ning Yi's eyes lit up with mischievous curiosity. "I really want to know why their demon hunt squad split up," she said. "Those teams are bonded by life or death trust. They don't fall apart over small things. If they broke suddenly, there has to be a reason. Love, money, something big." Lin Moyu laughed. She had an active imagination, lively and sweet, not at all the cold, composed type he'd expected from an assassin. In his head, assassins should be like Zuo Mei, steady, reserved. Instead, this girl bounced from one topic to the next. He found himself absent-mindedly ruffling her hair. Cute, he thought. As they pushed farther into the number 3 battlefield, the fog grew thicker, and the abyss's presence grew stronger. The buoyant Ning Yi had already forgotten whatever had happened earlier and switched subjects. "I heard the abyss is divided into lots of regions," she said. "The 1st through 3rd Yuan battlefields only correspond to the upper levels of the deep, right?" Lin Moyu nodded. He'd seen the same information in the mission data. The Yuan battlefields were enormous, spanning many regions and drawing involvement from every nation. On Shen Xia's side, the Yuan battlefield was divided into 9 sectors, number 1 through number 9, protected by the Eternal Great Wall. Each sector was anchored to a corresponding fort. Forts 1 through 3 sat at the abyss's entrance. Because the plains were folded and overlapped, those battlefields looked close together, even though, in truth, they were the farthest apart. Powerful defenders had placed countless barriers and wards there so that the strongest abyssal demons couldn't break into the 1st through 3rd sectors. From Sector 4 onward, the battlefield overlapped much more directly with the abyss's space, so those areas drew far more abyssal creatures. Demons above level 40 were common there. For humans, level 40 was a watershed. Demons over that threshold were far stronger and were classed as high-level abyssal beasts. Lin Moyu quickly brought them up to speed on what he knew about the abyss and the Yuan battlefield. Deep in Sector 3, there's a zone where the overlap with the abyss's entrance is particularly thin. You can actually perceive the true abyss there, he said. More monsters spawn there. Demons appear frequently. There's even an instanced area, a kind of copy, that opens inside that overlap. A light flickered in Ning Yi's eyes. She was already thinking about the military merits that could be earned there. If there are more demons, even military honors will lose their meaning. She hadn't worried about danger. Lin Moyu was with her, and that was enough to make her feel safe. What Lin Moyu had told her was only broad intel. The real situation would only become clear when they arrived. It seemed likely that the demon hunter squads that had been fighting earlier had driven a lot of abyssal man-eaters toward this area. At first, they saw almost nothing. After a few more hours on the road, however, the number of man-eating creatures began to rise. The landscape started to feel less like a calm path and more like a hunter's ground. In just 3 hours, Lin Moyu and Ning Yi ran into no fewer than 5 separate groups of demon hunters. Each group was organized differently, with varying numbers and professions. One team was an extreme combination, 6 professional assassins traveling together. They moved in near silence. Whenever a monster appeared, they activated their stealth skills and struck from behind. Assassins were terrifyingly effective. When the 2 assassins triggered the 393 skill at the same instant, the man-eating monster of the same level was cut down in a heartbeat. The sight made Lin Moyu think of the dragon assassins he'd read about in the Hellpost copy. Extreme attributes, devastating burst damage. Those assassins could nearly shred a skeleton warrior in a single strike. Apparently, human assassins were no different. If anything, they were more flexible and had an even wider range of techniques. Seeing Lin Moyu made a mental note. In professional matches, you had to be extremely careful around assassins. Then a black seam appeared in his line of sight. It stretched on until it seemed to split the world in 2. On the other side of that seam lay the abyss world. From a distance, it looked like empty space. No walls, no doors, but nothing could pass through. Monsters and demons from the abyss didn't simply wander out. An invisible force kept the 2 realms apart. When someone reached out and touched the seam, it didn't resist like solid matter, so much as ripple like water, faint waves spreading from the point of contact. It was a folding of space, the collision of 2 worlds forming a strange, uncanny boundary. Ning Yi stared, awed and a little afraid. "There's an abyss inside," she whispered. "It looks so terrifying." Lin Moyu stood at the edge and stared into the dark maw. Pairs of blood-red eyes glowed back, hungry and feral. The abyss seemed to stretch in every direction. No matter where he looked, that void stared right back. He remembered a line he had once heard. When you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you. Every so often, a spatial rift would open, and creatures would spill out. A scream cut through the air as an abyssal demon, human upper body, snake's tail, hurtled down from the sky. It twitched twice on the ground, then fell utterly still. Chapter 153. As soon as Cao Cao was mentioned, Cao Cao died. The abyssal demon fell from the sky and lay dead, and as its corpse hit the ground, a single figure hung in the air. He held a dagger that cast a sharp, white light, dazzling and cold. Every piece of his gear gleamed platinum, not just the blade, but his armor and accessories as well. He was clearly a veteran, an assassin of over level 40 who had gone through a second prestige. One strike had been enough to cut down a level 38 abyssal demon. He hadn't revealed himself until after the kill. He'd been cloaked in stealth, and only then did he let his presence be known. Around them, several other high-level professionals, mostly over level 40, were busy slaughtering demons and collecting military merits. Demons above level 40 rarely appeared in this area, so it had become a relatively safe hunting ground for elite players. After the kill, the assassin's indifferent gaze swept the surroundings, and then he shot off into the sky. Lin Moyu stared after him, baffled. Assassins below level 40 couldn't fly, so how was he doing it? Ning Yi shot up her small hand. "I know this," she said. After level 40, there are a few ways to give a non-flying class the ability to fly, she rattled off. One is a sage skill called Wings of Wind. It can grant flight to other people. It's hard to learn, though, and not every sage even knows it. After a prophet completes their second job, their class title becomes Saint. There are also flying potions. If you drink one, you can fly, but the speed is slow and the duration is short. And then there's the Windwing Ring. It lets you fly, but it's expensive and only grants the flying attribute, so it's not very practical. She said everything she knew as if waiting for praise. Lin Moyu reached out and ruffled her hair. Ning Yi narrowed her eyes in pleasure. The information, however, didn't help him much. Sage skills can't be used on skeletons, and skeletons can't fly, so none of those options mattered for him. He finally understood what had happened. The assassin had been using a Windwing Ring. Lin Moyu had even seen the wind element flickering at the assassin's fingertips. We kept following the black line. I saw more professionals ahead, some moving in groups, others working alone. Most of the solo hunters were high level, above 40. This stretch was safe enough for them. "There are definitely more people than monsters here," Ning Yi complained. "I came to hunt abyssal demons, but I haven't found any. Half an hour in, and I've only killed some eaters. When I do spot an abyssal demon, it's already been finished off by someone else." Lin Moyu tried to reassure her. "Don't worry, we'll go deeper. We'll find them." No sooner had he said that than a piercing scream rang out, shrill and carried far. We turned toward the sound and saw a flock of things appear in midair, diving straight at a human professional. In the space of a heartbeat, the man was gone. The demons tore him apart so thoroughly there was nothing left, not even bones. They swallowed his gear as well, leaving no trace. Lin Moyu had long known that abyssal demons would eat anything, but he never expected them to devour human equipment as well. A ring fell from the sky, flashing with the pale sheen of platinum and crackling with wind element energy. Lin Moyu's pupils snapped tight. "It's his," he said. Ning Yi stared in shock. "The assassin from before. That was the senior professional who got eaten here." She swallowed. This was a high-ranked operative. How could he die like that? They had all assumed senior professionals were safe in this area, that they came here only to earn military merit. Yet in an instant, the man had been killed and his body consumed completely, no bones left behind. Several demons clustered around the spot. One in particular was strange, its whole form like swirling smoke, eddying through the air. Lin Moyu activated his detection technique. The readout appeared: Abyssal Shadow Fiend, High Demon, level 40. Power, 18,000. Agility, 22. 00. Magic, 5,000. Physique, 15,000. Skills, Entangling, Shadowing. Traits, can see through invisibility. Physical damage received is halved. Seeing those attributes, Lin Moyu felt a chill of surprise. It turned out to be a level 40 high-level demon, an opponent that outclassed many dungeon bosses. In raw power, it was only marginally weaker than the level 39 Elemental Queen. In this system, the jump from 39 to 40 was enormous. Level 40 was a different league. Its entangling ability crippled movement speed for player classes, eroding their damage output and making escape all but impossible. It could also see through invisibility, a natural nemesis for assassins, and it halved incoming physical damage, rendering it exceptionally resistant to melee strikes. With this demon backed up by several other abyssal fiends at levels 38 and 39, it was easy to understand how the previous assassin had died so suddenly. Lin Moyu's detection technique had given them away. The shadow demon screamed, "A level 26 brat, how dare you come here? Tonight we have an extra meal." "An extra meal," the other demons echoed, baring teeth as they surged forward. The dozen of them charged straight at Lin Moyu and Ning Yi, grinning cruelly. There was no way a single person could handle such numbers. Even the two of them together stood virtually no chance. It would be nothing less than a slaughter if they didn't do something fast. On Battlefield 3, there were supposed to be only a few demons above level 40, rare enough that Lin Moyu hadn't expected to run into any by accident. Still, there they were. Lin Moyu didn't show a shred of fear. His summoned skeleton warrior was still intact. It hadn't taken any real damage since they left the fortress. As long as that bone guardian held together, it could absorb the brunt of the attack and give them time. The real problem was mobility. Neither he nor the skeleton could fly. If one of the demons tried to break off and flee, they wouldn't be able to chase it down. So their best option was to stand their ground. Facing the snarling creatures, Ning Yi slipped behind Lin Moyu and put on an act of terror, trembling and ducking as if paralyzed with fright. That only made the demons more eager. "Don't bother hiding," one hissed. "Hiding won't save you." "You're finished," another crooned. "I'll bite your throat out and drink you dry." "Keep dreaming. You're not a vampire. What would blood even taste like to you?" A mocking voice snapped back from the pair, and the demons only laughed more, voices full of gleeful hunger. "I'll tear off your thighs. No, mine'll be the head. Brains are the best," they argued with one another as they charged. When they closed to less than 10 meters, Lin Moyu calmly raised his hand. A red light made the air shimmer. Skill, slow curse. The giant red net fell from above, and scarlet shackles shot out, and the demons' grinning laughter died instantly. "What?" they stammered, unable to react to the sudden change. The restraints closed around them before they could free themselves, and one after another they were pinned in place. Several crashed to the ground and tumbled onto Lin Moyu, but her bone armor flared with a white light, knocking them back so they hit even harder. Before they could recover, ranks of skeleton warriors materialized, packed so tightly they formed a continuous ring all around. No gaps, no escape. Pushing and pulling made no difference. There was simply no way to break out. As each skeleton appeared, its battle skill detonated. Bone blades flashed, and they began to hack at the demons. Screams filled the air. One of the demons, the Abyss Shadow Demon, thrashed wildly and then suddenly dissolved, its form turning to smoke and shadow. It had activated its shadow skill, becoming insubstantial and immune to physical attacks, like a wisp of smoke slipping through the bone's strikes. "If you think you can escape, you're dreaming." Lin Moyu snorted and flames coalesced in his palms. He unleashed Soul Flame, a skill that forces an abyssal shadow demon, of its shadowed form, and lays it open to psychic assault. The demon screamed as its twisted body writhed under the attack. Skeletons erupted from the ground. A skeleton warrior charged in, teeth bared, and its blows landed first. Even so, the shadow demon's ability to have incoming physical damage kept it from being cut down immediately. Then the soul flame hammered its mind. A hail of fire spells from the skeleton mages followed, hundreds of burning bolts converging on the creature until it was engulfed. The shadow demon refused to go quietly. It had come to battlefield number 3, planning to slaughter and plunder, to leave trailing death in its wake, and now it would die before it could even escape. In its final moments, it caught sight of Ning Yi smiling. The look of fear it had worn was a lie. The smile told it the truth. It had been tricked. "Cheated," it rasped, and then its consciousness snapped. System, kill, level 40 Abyssal Shadow Demon, experience plus 80,000, military merit 500, loot, demon crystal. Level 40 Abyssal Shadow Demon, total military merit reward 1,000, split between participants. Lin Moyu and Ning Yi each received 500. Ning Yi's sergeant's badge flared with a brilliant white light. Stars appeared overhead one by one, 10 in the blink of an eye. The white glow cooled to silver, and the sergeant's badge, transformed into the silver insignia of a second lieutenant. Chapter 154. Never let Old Man Ning know. The abyssal shadow demon lay dead. With their leader gone, the remaining abyssal fiends fell into despair and were slaughtered amid their own screams. The sergeant's badge on Lin Moyu's chest flared, and his military merits ticked upward. In that sweep, both Lin Moyu and Ning Yi gained 1,1200 merit points. The abyssal shadow demon yielded the largest share, 1,000 points in total, so each of them received 500 from that kill. The other 14 demons were all under level 40. One gave 100 merits, 2 gave 50 apiece, and the rest contributed only small amounts. After the distribution, Lin Moyu's total merits climbed back above 3,000. Ning Yi's reached 1,800. In addition to merits and experience, Ning Yi also picked up a demon knot, the mission item Bai Yuan had specified for collecting demon crystals. Bai Yuan must have expected Lin Moyu to face enemies above level 40 and assigned the task ahead of time. Ning Yi smiled. Looks like this is going to be the routine from now on. I'll fake being terrified and lure them down, then we kill them. That way they won't run off. It's a workable tactic, Lin Moyu said, but it's not a cure-all. The real problem is demons with ranged attacks. There were thousands of demon types, and many could attack from a distance. Some would hover in the air, fire off abilities, then vanish before you could retaliate. That made them especially troublesome. Demons weren't mindless beasts. They were intelligent enough to flee if they couldn't be overwhelmed. I just hope there are skills for dealing with that by level 30, he muttered. My experience bar was already at 89% toward level 26, and upgrade wasn't far off. If I could hang on until level 30, I could spend the basic skill scrolls and learn new abilities. Maybe then things would get easier. Xiajing Academy, Baishan Courtyard. Meng Anwen stared at Bai Yuan, stunned. 073. Bai Yuan's designation was usually the picture of calm. It was rare to see such an unsettled expression on him. He let out a low, baffled murmur. Are you crazy? Bai Yuan chuckled. This is going to be interesting. I want to see just how far this kid can go. Big dungeons like Tyrant's Desert couldn't stop him. They only gave him more points. He even soloed the Dragon Frontline Outpost on Hell difficulty. Tens of thousands of hellhounds would have been wiped out if he said they were. He paused, considering. Thinking about it, the elemental secret realm probably won't help him much either. Meng Anwen frowned. Are they really comparable? What level is the elemental secret realm supposed to be? How do its tiers match up to those dungeons? The Queen of Elements attributes are on par with a high-level demon around level 40, Bai Yuan said. You know how dangerous her skills are. Lin Moyu might have a horde of skeletons, but the Queen of Elements doesn't fear massed attacks. He waved a hand dismissively. I'm not worried. If he can't beat her, he can always get away. A loss now and then is useful. It shows you where your limits are. If I never let him struggle, he'd never learn, and I'd look useless. He smiled slightly. And even if he dies, it's not permanent. With the Hall of Valor's imprint, he won't really be gone. And it's not just the elemental secret realm, he added, voice low, hinting there were other trials to come. I also told him to go to the third battlefield, the Abyss border, to hunt demons, to take the copy of the Abyss outpost there, and to fight his way back out again. Bai Yuan finished, expecting a reaction. Meng Anwen stared at him without expression for a long moment, then suddenly laughed. Did you forget something? What do you mean? Bai Yuan blinked. He was sure he hadn't missed anything. Old Man Ning's granddaughter is with little Lin, Meng Anwen said, watching him coolly. She hasn't left her mark in the Hall of Valor. If she dies, Old Man Ning will come after you with everything he has. Bai Yuan slapped his thigh, alarmed. Damn, I didn't even think of the hat. So what now? Meng Anwen asked, amusement softening his face. I'll go fetch them if you want. Seeing Bai Yuan flustered pleased him. You're afraid, aren't you? Relax a little. Even if Yi didn't leave a mark in the Hall of Valor, Old Man Ning should have placed a soul protection spell on her. At the words soul protection spell, relief washed over Bai Yuan. Why didn't you say that sooner? Meng Anwen smiled faintly and closed his eyes. I told you so, you'd know for next time. Be more careful and think ahead. His voice was gentle but firm. He let his eyes fall shut again, as if the matter were settled. Bai Yuan finally let himself relax. He lifted his teacup and said, "It should be fine. Even if she runs into a high-level demon at the edge of the abyss, the worst that can happen is she dies, and even that isn't likely." A voice cut in from the doorway. "What did you say? Came back from the dead?" Old man Ning Tyron, walked into the room and sat down. "Who did you say came back from the dead?" Bai Yuan quickly shook his head. "You must have heard wrong. It's nothing." He couldn't tell Old Man Ning the truth. Not now. If Ning Tyron knew, his little courtyard would almost certainly be put in danger. Ning Tyron pressed on. "Where did you send that brat on the mission?" Bai Yuan answered smoothly. "I sent her to the Yuan battlefield. With Kid Lin there, your granddaughter will be perfectly safe. Besides, you've already put a soul-protecting seal on her. She won't die." Ning snorted coldly. "If anything happens to my granddaughter, I'll be the first to make you pay." Bai Yuan laughed lightly, easing the tension. "Don't worry. Nothing's going to happen." He didn't dare tell Ning Tyron the truth about where Lin Moyu and Ning Yi really were. Meng Anwen closed his eyes and slipped into meditation. The corners of his mouth twitched. He was barely holding back a smile. Battlefield number 3, the abyssal border. The mist that had hung there moments before shredded away, and a yawning black portal opened. Pairs of scarlet eyes glowed from its depths as the abyssal energy flowed through without resistance. It spilled over the field, and like a tide drawn by that power, man-eating abyssal creatures erupted across the third battlefield. In an instant, thousands of ravenous monsters swarmed every corner. A scarlet-eyed master surged through the portal, followed by ranks of demons. 10 enormous worm-like fiends and other grotesqueries materialized across the plain. "Ha! Human world, this demon has arrived," they bellowed. "The fabled, delicious human flesh. I'm here to taste it," another shouted. "Humans, get your necks washed and ready." Their laughter was sharp and bone-rattling. But before they could advance, massive streams of magic descended from the defenders, overwhelming many of them. The abyssal monsters staggered, stunned, and roared in fury. "Who?" one of them snarled, voice raw. "Which fool dares to attack this demon?" "Wow!" came a chorus of astonished cries as the battle erupted. "It hurts. This demon is going to kill you." "You're dead!" A buzzing sound filled the air as a red light descended. Red shackles formed above every demon's head. Their roaring cut off instantly. The skeleton warrior surged forward, leapt high, and crashed down onto a demon, pinning it with all 4 limbs so it couldn't leap free. Trapped in the curse, these fiends had no chance to escape. The skeleton's great blade came down, and gore exploded outward as the demons screamed. Wings were severed, limbs hacked off, and black blood sprayed like a fountain across the battlefield. The dark soil of the Yuan battlefield sank deeper under the carnage. Several corpses of abyssal man-eaters were hurled and landed atop the struggling abyssal demons. Boom, boom, boom. Skill activated. Corpse burst. Lin Moyu detonated the piled corpses in midair. Though the abyssal man-eaters were inferior in level and attributes to the abyssal demons, their vitality was still formidable. Their exploded bodies produced a 30-fold amplification, striking with force equal to 600% of the man-eater's vitality. For a moment it looked like the demons might be able to hold out, but after several consecutive explosive strikes, even an abyssal fiend couldn't resist. A translucent HUD flashed in front of Lin Moyu and Ning Yi. Kill. Level 38, Abyssal Wolf Demon. Experience plus 380,000. Military merit plus 50. Item obtained, Demon Essence Blood. Kill. Level 37, Abyssal Snake Demon. Experience plus 3,700,000. Military merit 50. Item obtained, Demon Essence Blood. The explosions wiped out the group of abyssal demons that had just stepped into battlefield number 3. They didn't even have time to retreat. They were slaughtered in an instant. It was a cruel stroke of luck for them. They had appeared directly in front of Lin Moyu. In seconds, Lin Moyu and Ning Yi cut down 20 abyssal demons between them. Each of them watched another notification pop up, plus 1,000 military merit. Ning Yi, curiosity written across her face, pointed toward a dark rift several dozen meters away. "That's the passage between the abyss and the human realm," she said. The portal stood about 10 meters high, a maw of deep, glimmering black threaded with streaks of lightning. The air around it warped and shimmered, bending as if it were water. Lin Moyu had seen descriptions of such passages before, but this was the first time he'd seen one with his own eyes. The abyss and the human world had collided, their boundary torn open in places. Besides the stable channels, brief, fragile rifts kept appearing at random, lasting only minutes, sometimes seconds. They were delicate things, wide enough for only weaker demons to squeeze through. Lin Moyu and Ning Yi watched the nearest rift with the same mixture of curiosity and alarm. Beyond its shimmering edge lay the abyss, and its energy was bleeding through into the Yuan battleground, coalescing into ravenous, abyssal creatures. "Hey, another one's coming out," Ning Yi said. A pair of blood-red eyes glowed in the portal. Lin Moyu's expression sharpened. At his command, the skeleton warrior hurled a demon corpse into the rift. The instant the body crossed the threshold, Lin Moyu triggered his technique. A deafening blast rippled through the opening, the rift convulsed violently. System: Killed level 38 Abyssal Wolf Demon. Experience plus 380,000, military merit 50. System: Killed level 37 Abyss Snake Demon. Experience plus 370,000, military merit 50. System notification: Kill a level 36 Abyssal Dog Demon. Experience plus 360,000, military merit 50. The sergeant's badge flared with a brilliant silver light, and the men received a rush of military merit. In an instant, both of their scores jumped, 3,000 points each. At the same time, the corpse detonated, taking out 60 abyssal demons in one blast. Lin Moyu felt a surge of relief and excitement. It had worked. The only way the corpse could have killed so many at once was if it had detonated inside the abyss world itself. By the time it exploded, it must already have been on that side. He ran the numbers in his head. The blast radius was 90 meters. The demons were 5 or 6 meters tall, some even larger. To wipe out 60 of them in a single explosion, they would have had to be packed tightly together, no scattering, just a crowded mass. A mental image formed, a rip in space, a portal, tearing open as countless demons spilled out, pressing and jostling for position. Then the corpse sailed through the opening and detonated in the middle of them, taking the entire cluster with it. The portal rippled and warped a few times, but after that it calmed and returned to normal. It looked like whatever spatial tier had formed could remain open for a while. Ning Yi shouted happily, "So many military merits, blow them up again and again." Lin Moyu shook his head. Wait a moment, they had only just detonated the rift. The demons on the other side wouldn't have finished regrouping yet. Blowing it up again too soon wouldn't be as effective. Sure enough, a minute later, pairs of blood-red eyes appeared in the spatial channel as the demons gathered again. The skeleton warrior hurled another demon corpse into the rift. As before, the corpse detonated the instant it entered. A string of system messages popped up. Killed level 38 Abyssal Wolf Demon, plus 38,000 EXP, plus 50 military merit. Killed level 37 Abyssal Wolf Demon, 370,000 EXP, plus 50 military merit. More prompts followed in rapid succession. The sergeant insignia that had just gone dark flared brightly again, and another plus 2,000 military merit notification flashed across the HUD. Lin Moyu's total climbed to 8,500, getting close to the 10,000 needed for a 1-star second lieutenant promotion. Ning Yi's military merit jumped to 7,900. She had never earned so many merits so easily before. The spatial channel distorted again from the repeated explosions, as if it might collapse at any moment. The spatial rift should have lasted longer, but the 2 corpse explosions had drastically shortened its life. The distortion around the channel worsened by the second, and Lin Moyu knew there was no hope of stabilizing it in time. A sting of regret hit him. It had been a rare opportunity. If he could have triggered 2 more waves, hell, even 1, he might have earned the promotion to 1-star second lieutenant. Now he would have to wait for another chance. Then, unexpectedly, the warp channel steadied. Lin Moyu felt a surge of hope. "It's still usable," he breathed. For a moment he allowed himself to relax. Then, in the next instant, the dead thing within the rift detonated. Flames poured out of the space tear, and behind it a vast, lidless eye opened, glaring into their world. Without thinking, Lin Moyu grabbed Ning Yi and dragged her aside. "Hold on," he shouted as a thunderous roar slammed from the rift. His ears rang so loudly he briefly lost his hearing. Ning Yi grimaced in pain beside him. A volley of lethal beams shot out from the stabilized channel and struck Lin Moyu. The skeleton armor protecting him shattered under the impact. The force of the impact shoved Lin Moyu backward as the death beams slammed into the skeletons. The bone soldiers took the brunt of it. They surged forward in a tight wall, turning their own bodies into shields. Each beam struck a skeleton warrior, and the creature shattered, bone fragments scattering. One died, then another, then another. Instant kills, no exceptions. With every corpse that burst apart, Lin's available summon slots disappeared along with them. The number of summons he could maintain was bleeding away. Panic rose, in his chest. Ever since he first started summoning these skeletons, they'd been wounded in battle but never actually destroyed. Now, simply by throwing themselves in front of the beams, they were being annihilated. He could have tried to stop the beams himself, but his personal defenses were far too weak. If the skeleton's armor failed, if their brittle plates splintered under that lightning-fast light, the damage to them was catastrophic. Each skeleton warrior could only absorb a single shot. The beams moved too quickly, like lightning. There was no dodging them unless you performed a perfect physical block. Lin's options were shrinking. Every sacrificial interception cost him not just a fighter, but another slot he would not be able to replace. If the next volley came, there might not be anything left to shield them. Beams shot from the Flame Demon King's eyes in rapid succession, each one incinerating one or two skeleton warriors. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen were torn apart, and the count kept rising. Lin Moyu realized this could not continue. Without hesitation, a skeleton hurled the remaining demon corpses toward the space channel. At the same time, Lin Moyu activated his skill. Corpse burst. Explosions detonated in rapid succession. Boom, boom, boom. And the detonation after detonation twisted and warped the space channel. The Flame Demon King's death rays were interrupted. He roared again and again, trying desperately to stabilize the rift, but he could not. Lin Moyu let out a breath of relief. His plan had worked. The last corpses went over the edge, and Lin Moyu detonated them deliberately. The space channel writhed and distorted even more. It shuddered as though ready to collapse. The Flame Demon King's fury boiled over. "Lin Moyu, I will not let you go. Absolutely not," he bellowed. The two explosions had clearly wounded him. The flames around him flickered and warped. His power was bruised, and the blaze that was his essence looked unsteady and malformed. Even something as small as a mosquito could wound the abyssal Flame Demon King, and failing twice to kill Lin Moyu had cost the demon a great deal of face. Lin Moyu simply ignored the roaring and even waved at him. "Goodbye. I'll tear you apart next time." The Flame Demon King bellowed in fury. "I will not let you go. Never." The portal winked out. Lin Moyu let out a long breath. 20 skeleton warriors had been destroyed. The price had not been small, but nothing catastrophic had happened in the end. Ning Yi, still tense, asked, "Moyu, are you all right?" Lin Moyu shook his head. "I'm fine. Just lost some skeletons." A flash of anger crossed his eyes. The grudge between him and the Flame Demon King was far from over. If anything, it had only deepened. Someday he would go down into the abyss and have a long talk with the Flame Demon King about demon life. A talk settled with fists. After checking again and again that Lin Moyu was truly unhurt, Ning Yi finally let herself relax and breathed a relieved sigh. Ning Yi still trembled. "I thought I was going to die," she told him. "The Flame Demon King was horrible. He came at us out of nowhere. If you'd been any other class, you would have been hit for sure." Lin Moyu replied, "When I get stronger, I'll go to the abyss and stab him a few times," she vowed, pounding her small fist. Lin Moyu reached out and ruffled her hair, feeling how soft it was. "I blasted him twice in a row. I couldn't really hurt him, but at least I embarrassed him a little." "It's normal he'd be mad at me," Ning said stubbornly, "but that's okay. I'll show him who can hit harder." Lin Moyu didn't share her fear. He was only level 26, but the Flame Demon King hadn't been able to kill him. Calmly, he recalled his summoned skeletons, putting them back into the summoning space to recuperate. That first death ray had been brutal. It had shattered the skeleton's bone armor and dealt enormous damage. Because of the way the summoning link worked, the damage was spread across all the summoned fighters and mages, Hess. Oh, every skeleton shared the burden. Their offensive power had been overwhelming for what was essentially fragile defense. With a single strike, both the skeleton warrior and the skeleton mage were badly wounded. A few more hits like that, and the bone troops would begin to fall in droves. Lin Moyu remembered how things had been back on battlefield number 1. Enemy attacks hadn't felt so fierce. Back then, the bone armor would hold for a second or two. It didn't collapse at the slightest touch like it did now. Since bone armor today is generally stronger than it used to be, the fact that it was breaking so easily here told him something important. This place must be closer to the abyss's entrance, where foes can channel extra power through the space rifts. He mocked the enemy outwardly, but inside he hadn't underestimated the Flame Demon King. A Demon King was comparable to the top-tier fighters, someone he couldn't take lightly or claim to rival. The two of them paused to rest. As they caught their breath, Ningyi chatted with Lin Moyu, and the tension eased. She soon slipped back into her usual lively, talkative self. After a short break, they set off again, following the black line that traced the edge of the abyss toward the deepest part of the battlefield. By all rights, this should have been the place swarming with abyssal demons. In the two of their minds, it should have been a non-stop battlefield. Instead, it was eerily quiet. A vortex marking the dungeon entrance spun in the air, making a low, distinctive hum. About 500 or 600 meters from the instance, a small, plain fortress sat on the ground. Senior operatives were posted both inside and around it, and a teleportation array stood nearby. When Ningyi saw the array, she couldn't help but exclaim, "Mountain!" Chapter 156, World Number 3 Battlefield, a teleportation array in the dungeon. Ningyi stared in disbelief. "There's a teleportation array here?" Lin Moyu looked equally stunned. A teleportation array, tucked inside the dungeon, of all places. Even more surprising, there were veteran teams stationed around it. They'd set up a small base and were keeping watch. If the array connected to Fortress Number 3, they could have simply teleported here the whole time. All that work carving paths and hauling supplies for nothing. A cluster of experienced players lounged at the dungeon's entrance, more like campers than sentries. They'd built a roaring fire, swapped rations, and chatted and laughed, as if the abyss, a dangerous realm that lay nearby, was nothing to worry about. When they noticed the shocked looks on Lin Moyu's and Ningyi's faces, they couldn't help grinning. "Heh," one of them said, amused. Two more people who didn't know about the teleportation array. They made the long march all the way here. "Yeah," another replied, shaking his head. "We see that every day. People never read the briefings." "It's what you get for not checking the intel," someone else added. "It's plainly in Fortress Number 3's notes. There's an auxiliary array inside the dungeon. Saves you the walk if you know where to find it." Hearing that, a dull flush of regret washed over Lin Moyu. Of course, it should have been in the fortress briefing. It all made too much sense in hindsight. They had spent hours, maybe days, preparing routes and clearing hazards when a simple teleport could have put them right at the doorstep. Ningyi's shoulders dropped. "If we'd known earlier." "It's not the end of the world," Lin said, forcing a half-smile. "We've still got the advantage of the path we carved, but yeah, we'll be more careful with intel next time." The veterans around the fire snorted with amusement, but one of them nodded in acknowledgement. "At least you two made it here on your own. That has its own value. Not everyone can handle the walk and what's along it." They motioned toward the guarded array. An arrangement of rune-inscribed stones and a modest lattice of arcane conduits humming faintly in the air. The watch team looked competent, though casual, and their base was Spartan but efficient. Supply crates, a few tents, a signal flare, and a ledger with entries on patrol routes and teleportation schedules. Lin and Ning exchanged one more look. The teleportation array solved the practical problem, getting people here quickly, but it also meant the dungeon's defenses were likely calibrated for rapid inserts and extra traffic. That changed their planning. What they had to do now wasn't simply reach the battlefield. It was to read the situation and decide whether to make use of the array or press on with their original approach. The veterans' laughter drifted on as the two newcomers steeled themselves. The lesson was clear. In this world, knowledge was as valuable as muscle. Next time, they would check the files. You can take the teleportation array straight to Fortress 3, but it still takes forever to walk from there, someone said. 697. Wouldn't be doing it just to save military merit. Teleporting costs military merit after all, another voice replied. Maybe they just wanted some couple time. How would a single dog like you know? Someone teased, laughter rippling through the crowd. Then someone's tone changed. Hey, look at their levels. Heads turned. Lin Moyu, level 26. Ning Yi, level 25. At those levels, coming to the know, 3 Battlefield was basically a suicide run to hand the demons dinner on a plate. They couldn't even get past the elemental planes. Any elemental spirit there could shred them to pieces. How on earth had they gotten this far? A big question mark hung over everyone's heads. The professionals exchanged baffled looks, glancing between each other as if asking the same silent question. Before anyone could figure it out, the teleportation array flickered, bright, short, and sharp, and the members of the Japanese team teleported away in an instant. Ning Yi spotted them and brightened. Sister Yue, she called. Lin Moyu looked up too and gave a small smile. What a coincidence. They hadn't expected to run into them on the 3rd battlefield. Ning Yi waved and repeated the greeting in a clear voice. Shi Xing'an and the others returned the smiles. Brother Lin, what brings you here? Shi Xing'an asked. Before Lin Moyu could answer, Ning Yi spoke for him. We're here on a mission. Kill some demons. Earn a few military merits. When they noticed the insignia on Ning Yi's shoulder, they realized she'd already been promoted to 2nd lieutenant. She must have run into demons on the way. Still, with Lin Moyu's skill, dispatching a few demons was no problem. Everyone still remembered how he'd cut down the quartet on the 1st battlefield like a war god. Ning Yi grinned and turned the question back to Liang Yu. Sister Yue, what about you? Liang Yue smiled. We came to level up. There's a dungeon here with great experience, a bit faster than Hell Outpost. We're already at level 31. The Hell Post dungeon was only level 26, which no longer gave them enough experience. The number 3 Battlefield Space dungeon, by contrast, was level 30. With the Outpost gear, and most importantly, the Hell Outpost shield in Shi Xing'an's hand, they were confident they could clear it. They had already finished the dungeon on Nightmare difficulty before. It had been hard, brutally so at times, but the experience rewards here were far better than anything Hell Post offered. When the group reached the dungeon entrance, they found a spot to sit and went over the plan. Shi Xing'an and Lin Moyu talked through the dungeon's peculiarities. The world number 3 battlefield was unusual. Its power was a blend of 3 realms, the human world, the abyss, and the elemental plane. Those 3 forces converged inside, giving the dungeon a tripartite character. The landscape looked strange, the monsters fought one another, and the whole place resembled a chaotic battlefield. Anyone who entered had to pick a side to fight for. You'll see the specifics once you're inside, Lin Moyu said. That's basically it, Shi Xing'an said, outlining everything he knew. Have you ever been to Hell difficulty? Lin Moyu asked. Shi Xing'an shook his head. Not me, I'm only level 31. Hell difficulty is asking to die. There are hundreds of pros around here, but very few have ever taken on Hell. You can still try, he added. If it goes badly, use a dungeon escape token and get out. Lin Moyu hadn't considered Hell difficulty before. In any dungeon that offers it, Hell mode pays out several times the rewards of Nightmare. If you can survive it, Hell is the better choice. Back when he was level 21, he had even dared to solo the level 26 Dragon Frontline Outpost on Hell. Now at level 26, he felt he could at least attempt the Hell mode of the number 3 battlefield world. Like Shi Xing'an said, there was no harm in trying. If it proved impossible, he could always bail with an escape token. After talking with Shi Xing'an and the others for a while, Lin Moyu finally understood why there were no demons here. The instance had been siphoning energy from both the abyss and the human world. Inside the replica's radius, several thousand meters, there were no spatial channels. Teleportation was impossible. Plenty of veterans were stationed here too. Even if dozens of demons showed up, they'd be nothing more than live targets. A small base with senior experts sat not far from the entrance, so anyone resting outside the dungeon didn't need to worry about sneak attacks and could actually sleep easy. Shi Xing'an's team had chosen Nightmare difficulty. They'd arranged to meet Lin Moyu here once the instance opened. She wanted to hear firsthand what hell difficulty was like. After a short wait, the summoned skeletons in the summoning chamber had fully recovered, and Lin Moyu finally stood. "Yi, let's go," she said. "Okay." Ning Yi nodded, and Lin helped her to the entrance. Number 3. Battlefield World. The instance bridged the abyss and the human world, drawing power from both. You could feel the two energies clashing here, a constant tug of war that charged the air. Beneath the surface, elemental energy from the earth was seeping into the instance, feeding it. The result was strange, 3 distinct forces converging inside the dungeon, warping its power. The instance was labeled level 30. The allowed entry range was 25 to 35, and party sizes were limited to 3, 6, or 12 players. A few veteran players lingered outside the portal, watching newcomers warily. "Kid, this is a level 30 dungeon," one of them warned. "The monsters in there are dangerous. Even ones marked as normal will tear you apart. You'd better find a team. Don't go in by yourself and get yourself killed." Lin Moyu only smiled and thanked them for the advice. Then, without hesitation, he and Ning Yi selected the hell difficulty and stepped into the instance. The professionals watching couldn't hide their dismay. They exchanged sympathetic looks and sighed. In their eyes, the two of them had no chance. Then someone squinted at Lin Moyu's status display and frowned. "Wait, look at their badges. Those are sergeant badges, aren't they? Silver, 2nd lieutenant rank. It even says they've got demon kills. But they're only level 26. Another player protested. The group fell silent for a beat, unable to reconcile the low levels with the evidence of actual combat experience. "Is anything impossible?" someone muttered finally, more to themselves than anyone else. "Have you heard? A few days ago, on battlefield number 1, 2 second lieutenants showed up, one level 18 and the other level 24, and they actually cleared the outpost dungeon on hell difficulty." "I hadn't heard. What happened?" The man began to tell the story of Lin Moyu, and those nearby, even the seasoned veterans, could only stare in disbelief. Some were so stunned they couldn't find words. They realized they'd only been watching from the sidelines and had missed the whole thing. The dungeon's entrance sat atop a mountain, and from that vantage point you could see the entire dungeon world laid out below. It was a strange place. One side was plunged in perpetual night, the other bathed in constant daylight, and a shifting strip of twilight ran between them like a living seam. The realm was divided into 3 distinct domains: the abyss, the human realm, and the elemental plane, each a separate force that carved the dungeon world into clear sections. Before them forked 2 paths. One led down into the darkness of the abyss, the other climbed toward the sunlit human realm. They would have to choose a direction to proceed, but neither path had opened yet, so no choice could be made. "Look, be quiet." Ning Yi suddenly pointed toward the center of the dungeon, at the alternating black and white world. Lin Moyu peered over and couldn't help but gasp. "This is war." Chapter 157. Is this the difficulty of hell? Too easy. The power of the dark abyss erupted, and a flood of monsters poured out. They were indistinguishable from the abyssal demons, ferocious, terrifying, cruel, bloodthirsty. Some streaked through the air, others thundered across the ground on massive mounts. The beast riders themselves were towering, terrifying shapes bristling with deadly momentum. On the human side, the veterans took their positions. Top specialists, all above level 70, hovered in the sky while many more charged across the ground. "These fighters, something's wrong," Lin Moyu said, scanning the scene. The combatants before them were not living humans at all, but phantoms, ghostly, illusory silhouettes. It wasn't just the human side. The abyssal forces looked equally unreal. The 2 armies clashed in that liminal space where light and darkness overlapped, a battlefield that felt half dream, half nightmare. Almost every abyssal demon could fly. Even those riding ground beasts could take off at a moment's notice. That aerial dominance made the odds brutally skewed against the human side. The moment the 2 sides clashed, humanity slipped into a desperate position. Then suddenly, one mage pushed his staff high and cried out, "Forbidden!" Everyone who was airborne, demons, and even some of humanity's greatest fighters, fell from the sky. Only that one mage remained aloft, standing alone as he raised his staff and intoned, forbidden curse, elemental disaster. The elemental forces around them erupted. The whole dungeon world trembled as wind, flame, water, and stone went out of control. Hundreds of human mages lifted their staves at once and chanted in unison, weaving forbidden spells that struck into the demon ranks. The demons took terrible losses. Then the Demon King manifested. It was a colossus, like an ancient demon god, looming impossibly tall. Each shift of its bulk made it seem hundreds of meters high. Its wings beat, and a devastating blast of elemental power poured from it, sweeping across the human lines. The forbidden magics met that blast head-on. They collided and detonated in a blazing tableau of color that engulfed the entire dungeon. When the light finally dimmed, there was nothing left to see. Neither human armies nor demon hordes remained. The realm that had once sat at the center of the shifting black and white flux had now transformed into a world of chaotic elemental energy. Elemental spirits swirled through the air. Lin Moyu realized that the display they'd just witnessed was a reconstruction of that ancient battle. A demonstration meant to explain the origin of the elemental plane. What they'd seen was probably only a sliver of the whole fight. Forbidden spells clashed, and the earth itself was torn apart. Ningyi watched, wide-eyed. Was that an ancient battle? It should be, Lin Moyu whispered. At the same moment, the barriers on both passages dissolved, leaving them no choice but to pick one path. Without hesitation, Lin Moyu turned toward the road that led into the darkness. The route was tainted with abyssal energy. For that reason, he instinctively chose it. They descended the mountain, the journey otherwise uneventful, until they reached the foothills. There, waiting on the plain, was a creature that looked exactly like an abyssal demon. The landscape stretched flat and empty as far as they could see. No buildings, no shelter. In the deepest part of that wasteland rose a towering statue, some 100 meters tall. The landmark marking the endpoint, the lair where the instance boss awaited. The dungeon was unusual in its simplicity. Divided into 3 sections, it only required clearing the abyss monsters to be completed. Lin Mo's summoned skeletons had finished recuperating. He released them all, 130 skeleton warriors and 100 skeleton mages, before moving on. Lin Mo didn't take the place lightly. This was a level 30 dungeon set to Hell difficulty, an almost inconceivable challenge. Dungeons on Hell, typically pushed toward level 35, demanded top-tier gear and required a full party of a dozen skilled players to clear. That a level 26 Lin Mo could even contemplate soloing it was unheard of. The first enemy that appeared resembled an abyssal wolf demon, only far larger than anything Lin Mo had seen before. The rider sitting astride it stood over 5 meters tall, and the mount itself was a blue, winged wolf capable of taking to the sky at a moment's notice. The skeleton warriors surged forward with heavy blades, while the skeleton mages began casting in unison. A torrent of spells tore into the air and poured toward the beast, but the creature simply bellowed and charged straight through the barrage. He didn't die. A concentrated volley from 100 skeleton mages should have been enough to seriously wound even a level 40 high demon. Yet the creature before him was only lightly hurt. Lin Moyu's detection spell, woven into the attack, spat back the creature's data. Battlefield Wolf Demon, Hell Level Elite Monster, Level 34, Power 15,000, Agility 1,000, Spirit 1,000, Physique 15,000, Trait, infused with abyssal energy, defense and vitality enhanced. Seeing the readout, Lin Moyu understood. These monsters were bound to the abyss. Their existence was fed by its energy. Although its nominal level had been suppressed, the wolf demon's core attributes were still formidable, and its special trait made it even tougher. Both defense and vitality were boosted. That was why a coordinated strike from 100 skeleton mages could only wound it, not finish it. The demon responded by lifting a 3-meter broadsword and bringing it down on a skeleton warrior. Steel rang against bone and armor in a metallic clang as the blow landed. The skeleton warrior only hesitated for a heartbeat and didn't take a step back. Skeletons had that brutal, built-in resilience. Ordinary attacks that lacked special effects couldn't truly stop them. No matter how high an enemy's defense or how much life it had, it only meant a few more cuts before it fell. The frontline skeletons launched their skills in unison. A great blade flashed with red light and tore through the wolf's hide. No blood sprayed. Instead, a black mist seeped out of the wound and dissolved into the air. The battlefield wolf demon barely reacted. It ignored the strikes as if they were nothing. If it were an ordinary demon, it would have been hurt and fled long ago. Then all 10 skeleton warriors exploded into action at once, and the skeleton mage unleashed a second concentrated volley of fire. This time, the attacks connected. The wolf let out a strange popping sound, like a balloon being pierced, swelled briefly with black air, and then vanished without a trace as the dark vapor dissipated into the sky. Kill, level 34 battlefield wolf demon, EXP plus 680. The amount of experience flashed on the HUD like a promise, enormous. It was far higher than what a hell-level outpost usually gave, and roughly double what an abyssal demon of the same level would grant. That made sense. This was a level 30 dungeon with hell difficulty after all. Lin Moyu frowned and scanned the battlefield. There are no bodies, she muttered. Like the monsters in the elemental planes, these foes left no corpses behind, which meant their usual corpse detonation tactic was useless. Ningyi's expression tightened. No corpses? We can't detonate them then. Lin Moyu nodded grimly. For a second it looked like a dead end, but then Ningyi's face broke into a smile. Fine, if we can't fry them, we'll flatten them one by one. They moved forward. As soon as they stepped into the new area, the world went almost completely black, like the thickest night. Any stray light was swallowed by a dense aura of darkness. The HUD registered its strength as 230. The only faint glows came from spectral fires flickering in the eye sockets of nearby skeletons. Lin Moyu raised her palm and kindled a small soul flame. It hovered there, painting a narrow pool of light around them. Ningyi's eyes flashed in the dim. The assassin's skills had already come online. The assassin had once been a night elf. Darkness had always been her closest ally. In Ningyi's vision, the shadows felt friendlier than the light. There are a lot of them, she whispered. Ningyi gave a small cry as she spotted shapes moving in the black. Lin Moyu couldn't see them. You point, I'll hit, he said. Okay, Ningyi answered, unexpectedly thrilled. Ever since she'd found the dragon assassin, she'd been stuck in a mostly decorative sidelined role. But now, she actually had something to do. She pointed out each monster's position, and Lin Moyu sent his skeleton warriors rushing forward. Picking them off one by one wasn't as fast as wiping them out in a single blow, but it was cleaner and safer. Lin Moyu didn't need detailed instructions. Whenever Ningyi indicated a target, he let the skeletons swarm in and finish the job. The monsters were dense here, and sometimes several would be drawn to the same spot, which made things a bit more demanding, but Lin Moyu noticed they were only tougher because of higher vitality. Otherwise, there was nothing particularly unusual about them. The hell difficulty turned out to be much easier than the dragon frontline outpost instance. Lin Moyu simply plowed straight through it, and his experience bar shot up fast. By the time they were halfway done, his XP had already hit 99%. At the same moment, Ningyi's body was bathed in white light. She had just finished leveling up. She couldn't help but laugh. This is supposed to be hell difficulty? It's way too easy. Chapter 158. Sorry about the hell difficulty label. Even weak bosses are weak. After clearing a few more monsters, Lin Moyu finally leveled up. Following his plan, he summoned 10 fresh skeleton warriors before activating the upgrade and added them to his summoning space, bringing his total back up to 140. He still hadn't used his enhanced mental ability. With no idea what kind of boss they might face ahead, it felt wiser to hold on to that power for now. It might come in handy. The team pushed on and before long had fully cleared the Dark Realm. The monsters didn't get any tougher in the later stages, but they did grow far more numerous. Encounters with multiple foes at once became the norm, and meeting 4 or 5 simultaneously wasn't unusual. Lin Moyu had no reason to worry. His skeletons were out front doing the fighting. His gold-ranked fighter skeletons and gold-ranked mage skeletons never tired, never felt pain, and knew no fear of life or death. There were no more reliable, single-minded soldiers than they. Moyu, do you feel like this place is getting brighter? Ningyi asked suddenly. Lin Moyu had noticed it a moment earlier. As they cut down more of the monsters, the area that had once been swallowed by darkness was slowly becoming visible. The light was no longer completely absorbed. Standing there, they could even see the faint glow of the distant sky. The stone statue of the boss, which had been pitch black, now gave off a thin, ghostly light. Still, Ning frowned. It's odd. Even though things are glowing, it feels darker. They watched as another creature collapsed. When it died, a cloud of black energy burst free. Part of it drifted away and vanished, but another part flowed straight back into the statue. It was as if each killing was a ritual, a pulse that could help wake the boss. The fragment that dissipated didn't just disappear. It seemed to streak off in the direction of the human settlements. Lin Moyu studied the pattern and said with growing certainty, "Every monster we destroy weakens the abyss's hold, and at the same time, some of that darkness is being converted into power for humanity. The more we clear out, the stronger we become, and the weaker the abyss grows. The energy from the abyss monsters goes into the statue after they die," Lin Moyu said. "The dungeon looks straightforward," Ning Yi added, "but the real challenge will probably be the boss." Lin Moyu had suspected as much. A hell dungeon wasn't going to be that simple. If it were, teams could just play it safe, pull a few monsters at a time and pick them off. A full 12-person party would have no trouble, and even Xixingan's group could push through with some effort. Ning Yi agreed. The true difficulty would lie in whatever the boss did. That matched what they'd noticed about Xixingan's run. Nothing like the strange energy transfer had appeared in his nightmare mode attempt. Besides, the scene they'd witnessed hadn't begun during his nightmare clear. If it had, she would have mentioned it. He was meticulous and had gone through their strategy step by step. Parts of his account lined up with what they'd seen, but other parts didn't match at all. It was clear the hell difficulty and the nightmare difficulty operated on completely different mechanics. When it came down to size, the boss statue in hell wasn't as enormous as the version they were currently facing. In this dungeon, the statue only reached about 30 meters, imposing to be sure, but nowhere near the 100 meters it had swelled to now. Generally, the bigger the body, the stronger the creature, so Lin Moyu grew more cautious. As dawn lightened the cavern, he could finally make out the remaining monsters. Ning Yi let out a relieved breath and relaxed her wide eyes. Up until now, the run had been suspiciously easy. How could a dungeon listed as hell difficulty feel so simple? The monsters fell one by one, their numbers dwindled, and the gloom receded. Night was nearly gone. Only a handful of creatures remained, and at the center of the Hamber the boss statue was still an impossibly deep black, darker than the thickest ink. A faint glow pulsed at its core. The statue trembled now, clearly on the verge of reviving. If Lin Moyu allowed the last few monsters to be slain unchecked, the statue would complete its recovery. He set his jaw and looked sternly at Ning Yi. "Go down to the foot of the mountain. Don't come up here." Ning Yi understood that her presence could become a liability. "Be careful," she replied, worry and determination mingling in her voice. Then she scampered to the base of the slope and hid behind a large boulder, only her small head peeking out as she watched him. The skeleton warrior finished off the last of the monsters without difficulty. As the final creature collapsed, the darkness bleeding in from the abyss side of the world dissolved. The statue that had stood still suddenly roared and shifted. Thick black fur erupted across its surface, and, in an instant, it transformed into a colossal, black-haired beast. Lin Moyu and the skeleton were like ants at its feet. When they craned their necks, they couldn't even see its head. Even the skeleton's greatsword seemed pencil-thin next to a single hair on the creature. They had never encountered an enemy of this scale before. The sheer size of it pressed down on them, and Lin Moyu felt his breath snag. The boss, now covered in dense black fur, looked exactly like a giant black panther, the same abyss demon king he'd glimpsed when he first entered the instance. In fact, the monsters they'd fought earlier were the same ones he'd seen on entry. This dungeon wasn't the true abyss, but a construct formed by siphoning abyssal energy. Its beings were therefore weaker in attributes and level than real abyssal demons. Element Leopard King, Hell Level Overlord, Level 36. Power, 15,000 Agility, 15,000 Physique, 15,000 skills. Elemental explosion, elemental sweep. Traits, extreme speed, greatly enhanced vitality, greatly enhanced defense. All core stats sat at a flat 15,000, exactly the same distribution as the skeleton warrior. That balance, combined with the extreme speed trait, made the beast terrifyingly fast. Its boosted vitality and defense gave it exceptional survivability. Lin Moyu sized the creature up immediately. In raw numbers, it resembled the Abyss Demon King. Despite being only level 36, its attributes were effectively doubled, making it a condensed version of that legendary foe. The conclusion was plain. If he couldn't neutralize its speed, there was no point in engaging it head-on. The Leopard King's massive frame was impressive, but it also offered opportunities. Against nimble skeletons and with the slowing curse Lin Moyu had in mind, that bulk would be more of a liability than an advantage. If he could limit its mobility, the giant's size would work against it. Like the giant dragon I'd seen fall to the skeleton warrior when I changed classes, even the mightiest beasts could be cut down in an instant. Little things like ants shared the same fate. The elemental Leopard King, now fully recovered, loomed over Lin Moyu like an indifferent god and let out a savage roar. A rush of wind sprang up, and the four elements stirred. Flames sprang into being and twirled on the breeze. Thunder and lightning split the sky while rain froze into a hail of ice arrows. Fire, lightning, wind, and ice erupted together in a breathtaking display of elemental control, proof of the leopard's extraordinary power. But the onslaught never reached Lin Moyu. A suit of skeletal armor appeared and absorbed the strikes, nullifying the barrage. Then a skill activated, Slow Curse. A heavy red net fell over the leopard, and its roar thinned into a long, strangled mew. Furious, it swiped at Lin Moyu with its claws. Even so, the leopard moved with frightening speed. With an agility stat of 20,000 and the extreme speed trait, it was astonishingly fast. So much so that even when Slow Curse reduced its speed by a factor of 40, it still hurtled forward far quicker than most opponents. Unlike most monsters, the cursed beast moved with a sluggishness to it, slow but still faster than Lin Moyu. The elemental Leopard King's claws fell like boulders, and Lin Moyu didn't dodge. He stood perfectly still as the great paw came down. There was a deafening crash that shook the ground. The Leopard King hesitated, as if sensing something wrong. The claws could not drive through. Lin Moyu's bone armor flashed, taking the full force of the blow and stopping the attack outright. In raw strength, the elemental Leopard King wasn't that far above an ordinary outpost guard, and with skeleton armor plating his body, Lin Moyu had nothing to fear. The moment the leopard struck, a horde of skeleton warriors swarmed. One leapt up, grabbed handfuls of pelt and hair, while another brought down a heavy cleaver, again and again. In the blink of an eye, 140 skeletal fighters were on the beast, blades repeating the same brutal arc. Their skills detonated together, red light flaring across the sky. With a roar, the elemental Leopard King threw up its blade, and a puff of black air burst from it, streaking toward the human positions. The skeletons didn't hesitate. They switched into butchering mode and continued to hack at the creature, metal ringing in a relentless, clattering percussion. Every time an attack landed, a wisp of black air would flare up and scatter into the sky. Skeletal mages surged into the fight and formed an enclosing elemental field around the center, just as they had when facing the Hellwatch Guardians. That formation kept the elemental Leopard King from striking every skeleton at once. The skeleton warriors unleashed a synchronized barrage of skills, while the skeletal mages poured concentrated fire into the gap. The elemental Leopard King visibly shrank. What had been nearly 100 meters tall was reduced to roughly 95 meters, a significant loss in scale. Once its body was completely severed, it would be finished. Weak, too weak, Lin Moyu muttered, shaking his head. The whole thing felt increasingly wrong. Chapter 159. Come to me and kill me. The thin wisp of black air clinging to the leopard was its life force. It wasn't a soul so much as a concentrated lump of energy. Once that energy was drained, the creature would be destroyed. The elemental Leopard King didn't feel pain. Physical strikes went unnoticed on a sensory level, but it still reacted. Anger flared, an instinctive outrage at being harried by ants. Humiliated, it responded with a roar and struck back without hesitation. Skill. Elemental explosion. Massive elemental energy detonated across its hide. Dozens of skeletons nearest to it were torn apart in the blast, and the shockwave expanded outward, hurling skeleton mages tens of meters away. From Lin Moyu's perspective, the attack was almost identical to the Elemental Queen's signature move. The difference was that the Queen had to channel through her star ring. The Leopard King did not. It controlled the elements directly and far more effortlessly. The image of the dungeon's entry screen flashed through Lin Moyu's mind. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The origin of the elemental plane, the reason the elemental secret realm existed, and how the Elemental Queen herself had come to be. The havoc had been set in motion by the forbidden curse that had torn up the battlefield. The Elemental Leopard King was one of the culprits summoned into the fray. Unfortunately for it, the dungeon only copied appearances. Level attributes and skills were capped. The imitation of the Elemental Leopard King was inferior in every way to the Elemental Queen. Its versions of the same skills were far less potent. When the skeleton warrior was blown apart, it wasn't badly hurt. It reassembled with 100 clicks and charged back as if nothing had happened, treating the leopard's attacks with contempt. The Elemental Leopard King grew angrier with each dismissal and began pouring out skills one after another, detonating the skeletons again and again. Each time a skeleton was blasted apart, it clicked itself back together and returned, but the repeated onslaught took a toll. After a few rounds, its size steadily shrank. Before long, its height had dropped to 70 meters. Dark, black air bled off from the leopard's attacks and drifted toward the human world. Furious, the elemental leopard began preparing its second technique. Elemental Sweep. The fur across its body elongated and split into whip-like strands, lashing out wildly. When the Elemental Leopard King twitched, it sent out a cascade of mixed elements, wind and lightning, ice and fire, a dazzling, chaotic display. Spectacular as it was, it barely mattered. The skeleton warrior didn't even flinch. To Lin Moyu, the hulking skeleton was nothing more than a thick-skinned, high-HP target. The leopard's greatest advantage, its speed, had been neutralized by the slow curse, so there was no frantic struggle to avoid its blows. It would just take a bit more time to grind it down. The Elemental Leopard King was far weaker than he'd expected. The more he observed, the more puzzled he became. A hell-level dungeon shouldn't feel easier than an outpost dungeon. A coordinated 12-person squad could probably clear this place without too much trouble. But this was supposed to be hell. It couldn't be that simple. Could the real challenge come from choosing the human faction's path? The thought passed and was dismissed. The boss was losing its intimidation factor. Sure, its vitality and defense had been boosted, enough to make it look tougher on paper, but those increases only stretched the fight out by a few minutes. In practice, it was still something they could wear down. When the last wisp of black smoke dissipated, it vanished entirely. The dungeon's lingering darkness was gone, replaced by a blinding, pervasive light. Kill level 36 Elemental Leopard King, experience 2,160. Acquired Elemental Staff. Elemental Staff, Gold rank equipment, Mental Power 600, Constitution plus 400, Mage Skills 22 cent. The experience reward was generous, but the drop was disappointing. G. An Elemental Staff. Its stats didn't even match up to the Hell Post staff he already owned. This wasn't what Lin Moyu had expected from a Hell difficulty dungeon. The fight hadn't been that hard either. Apart from the leopard's thick hide, there hadn't been much to it. The instance exit shimmered into being in front of him. "Is that it?" he muttered. He couldn't shake a growing unease, though. Ning Yi hurried up beside him and pointed toward the human realm within the dungeon. "There's something strange over there." In the distance, a figure hovered in midair, bathed in brilliant light. It looked like a mage, not a flesh-and-blood person, but a construct of raw elemental energy, much like the Elemental Leopard King. Only this one's aura was far stronger. When Lin Moyu met its gaze, the creature actually lowered its head and looked straight at him. The two pairs of eyes stared at one another for a long moment, and then an old, majestic voice sounded, not out loud, but inside his mind. "Come find me." The words hit Lin Moyu like a chill. He froze, a creeping unease crawling up his spine. Ning Yi showed no sign of hearing anything. The voice had spoken directly to him. Whatever it was, his instinct told him he had to obey. "Yi, wait here," he said. Ning Yi understood immediately what he was about to do. "Be careful," she called after him. Lin Moyu moved off, the skeleton at his side, heading toward the human side of the dungeon. The place felt like a battlefield, abyssal demons and human-class powers locked in constant combat. His presence seemed to dispel the abyssal energies in the area, but the energy did not vanish. Instead, it converged and poured into the human side. The Terran section of the instance swelled in strength. An exit flickered into being, but the dungeon was far from over. Lin Moyu realized why most past teams never went further. They probably quit after killing the elemental leopard king, or when they thought they were done with the Terran area. Few, it seemed, had ever crossed to the far side of the world. Elemental spirits hovered in the buffer zone between the two territories. The skeleton army swarmed forward and quickly wiped them out. Then they kept moving, driving straight into human land. The atmosphere here was strange, split between two extremes. Part of it was an absolute ink-black void. The other was a harsh, blinding brightness. It made Lin Moyu squint. He could barely make anything out. Fortunately, the skeleton warriors weren't affected by it at all. A humanoid figure finally resolved out of the light and shadow. Its skin was a sickly pale blue, and its posture was all wrong, twisted and contorted, limbs folded in unnatural angles. Rotting gaps pitted its face and body, and a viscous blue fluid oozed from those holes like some corrupted blood. It looked human-shaped, but it was no human. A system readout flickered into view. Mage Soul, Hell-Enhanced Elite Monster, Level 3000, Agility, 1000, Magic, 2000, Physique, 2000. Skills, Resistance to Fire Ring, Meteorite, Falling from Heaven. Magic Shield characteristics, Physical attack damage is halved. Elemental attack damage is halved. Its attributes were formidable. After he wiped out the dark power, all the residual energy pooled here. Humanoid monsters spawned en masse. The mage in front of him had even been upgraded. What had been an elite monster was now a hell-level enhanced elite, and it just happened to be Lin Moyu's least favorite kind of foe. They were infuriating. The mage's fire ring was resisted by a special effect that knocked every skeleton back, and a magic shield could block incoming spells. On top of that, they had double reductions to both physical and elemental damage, making them insanely durable. They were a pain to clear. If not for that voice in his head, he probably would have chosen to withdraw. He could take them on, but it wasn't worth the trouble. The cost-to-benefit ratio was awful, and there was no way to burst them using corpse explosions. But now, if one of them dared to come lose, he'd hit it. A skeleton warrior charged forward. The skeleton mage's spells crackled as bolts of energy shot out. A blue flash announced a magic shield snapping into place in front of the humanoid mage, taking the hit from the skeleton's spell. Then the mage's fire ring erupted. The skeleton warrior that had rushed forward was slammed by the blast and sent flying backward. The fire ring's resist effect had a secondary property, Zhenfei. No matter the skeleton's level or attributes, Zhenfei acted as a control effect, a guaranteed knockback. There were enough skeleton warriors to absorb the initial blows. A few were knocked back, and more took their place. The heavy blade slammed into the magic shield, warping it instantly. Only a few more strikes and it would collapse. The humanoid mage activated another skill. A fire meteor tore through the sky, appearing from nowhere and crashing down with a thunderous blast. The ground became a sea of flame. One skeleton stood unmoving in that inferno, unflinching as he held his great blade and kept slashing. 5 strikes, 6, 10. The skeletons took turns battering the shield, and after 10 blows, the barrier finally shattered. At the same moment, the skeleton mage's own skill responded, overwhelming the humanoid. The skeletons met him with a hail of blades. A few seconds later, Lin Moyu received the notification. Monster defeated. It had been a level 36, Hell Tier Enhanced Elite. Good experience, even if split between 2 people. With one of the humanoids down, Lin Moyu pressed on. There were no warrior or assassin monsters here, only mages, the most annoying kind. Fortunately, there weren't many of them, no more than 2,000 in all. Using the same method, Lin Moyu spent over an hour mopping up the remaining mage creatures. At last, he reached the final chamber. The mage he'd met earlier opened his eyes, fixed him with a stare, and whispered, "Kill me." Chapter 160, A Life or Death Battle Without Strategy. A strange expression crossed Lin Moyu's face. The humanoid mage before him not only spoke, it had even instructed him to come find it, and the first words it said upon meeting him were to tell him to kill it. Under Lin Moyu's stare, the mage slowly rose to its feet. Like the others, it had a light blue translucent body, but otherwise it looked remarkably human. Unlike the other humanoid monsters, it wore a robe that seemed to shift and reform with raw energy. When it stood, it straightened and smoothed the robe almost automatically. Every motion suggested awareness, rather than the mindless behavior of ordinary monsters. This was the first time Lin Moyu had seen anything like it. A staff materialized in the mage's hand. Lin Moyu's pupils tightened. This was not an energy construct, but a real equipped weapon. The mage lifted its head and looked at him. "If you want to know why," it said, "kill me and I'll tell you." The remark sounded absurd no matter how he heard it. How could the dead speak? How could killing it produce an explanation? Lin Moyu didn't have time to puzzle that out. The mage raised his staff, and a massive fireball tore into being. It streaked toward Lin Moyu with scorching heat and terrifying speed. The skeletal warrior lunged forward and shoved himself between the spell and Lin Moyu. The fireball slammed into the skeleton and detonated. Flames roared outward, and the skeleton's armor flared like a mirror, deflecting the worst of the blast. Even so, a single strike had left the skeletal warrior gravely damaged. Lin Moyu felt his jaw tighten. That attack was overwhelming. This mage was far stronger than the elemental leopard king they'd just fought. After the leopard's death, most of the dungeon's residual energy had poured into the mage. Even the energies of nearby humanoid monsters had been drawn to him. It was as if almost the entire dungeon had concentrated on one target. No wonder he hit so hard. "If you won't die, then I'll kill you," the mage snarled. His staff began to hum, and the whole instance shuddered. Lin Moyu's expression went cold. The dungeon exit around Ning Yi vanished, and the ability to use the dungeon breakout symbol was disabled. They couldn't leave the instance now. It was simple and brutal. Kill or be killed. If he lost, not only would he die, Ning Yi would be killed too. Skeleton warriors and skeleton mages attacked at the same time. A detection spell shot out. The readout came back. Elemental Mage, Hell Dungeon Leader, level 39, Power, 1000, Agility, 1000, Spirit, 4000, Physique, Skills, Shackles of Wind, Explosive Flame, Fire and Destruction, Silence, Magic Shield characteristic, Greatly Enhanced Vitality. On paper, this level 39 boss had weak strength and agility, but its spirit was a staggering 40,000. The 27th level Skeleton Mage's spirit had been boosted to 45,000, which looked higher, yet it was no match when it came to skills. The boss's skill power was devastating. Just a moment ago, a skeleton warrior had been seriously wounded after taking a single hit. For professionals, strength isn't determined by attributes alone, but by skills, and this elemental mage clearly had been a mage in life. Reconstructed by the dungeon's energy after death, it retained all the traits of its profession, especially a terrifyingly strong mental power. The boss's attribute score, 40,000, was higher than the Queen of Elements. It was the strongest single attribute boss Lin Moyu had ever seen. On top of that, it had 5 active skills. Lin felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. There was no way out now. It was a fight to the death. A skeleton warrior charged forward, sword raised, and its skill detonated. A blue flash surged out, and a shimmering shield formed around the boss. Ability, Magic Shield. The spells the other skeletons hurled struck the barrier. The shield flared with blinding light and warped under the impact, but within half a second it snapped back into place. The Magic Shield was incredibly strong, stronger than any Lin had encountered. She couldn't tell what level the enemy's skills were, only that they were formidable. Lin clenched her hand. A flame sparked into being in her palm. Skill, Soul Flame. The fire ignored the protective field and bloomed above the boss's head. The boss convulsed in pain, its whole body trembling, though it made no sound. Without pausing, Lin unleashed another ability, skill, Slow Curse. Red light washed over the boss, and its movements abruptly slowed. The boss hadn't expected them to have control abilities. Its expression flickered. surprise edged with an odd, almost pleased curiosity. The skeleton mages answered in a storm of spells, unleashing everything at once. Exploding flame, ice storm, tornado storm, 5 thunders, wind, fire, ice, and lightning braided together into a blinding display. The 4 elemental assaults slammed into the boss's protective magic shield, sending light scattering and forcing the barrier to buckle and warp under the pressure. With a sudden crack, the shield shattered. At the same moment, the skeleton warrior's blow struck home. Blinding rays of light shot out from the impact and swept across the battlefield, striking the skeleton mages. The light hit them squarely. Skill, silence. The silence effect sealed their mouths and minds. They could no longer cast a single spell. Even the skeleton mages were not spared. Control skills, those Lin Moyu loathed above all, were ruthless in their efficiency. The beams kept sweeping, and one after another, the mages went silent. Stripped of their abilities, they stood frozen, eyes vacant, utterly helpless. Seeing the opening, Lin Moyu immediately finished off the skeleton mage that hadn't been silenced. The skeleton warriors kept coming, their broadswords cutting through the air. One skirmisher tried to pull back, but a curse slowed its retreat to a crawl. Lin Moyu kept firing soul flame after soul flame. Each hit made them flinch and howl. A skeleton warrior closed to melee range, too fast for him to dodge, but a sudden gust of wind cut through the formation. Chains of air wrapped the lead skeletons and held them in place. "Shackles of the wind," the boss announced as it kept unleashing skills. With every cast, a few more skeletons were immobilized, unable to advance. Blue light flickered, and a magic shield sprung up around the boss. Even those skeletons that managed to reach it couldn't break through. In moments, more than half the undead were trapped, frozen like wooden stakes. Mobs with crowd control were annoying enough. Bosses that used it were an absolute headache. The skeleton warriors were bound, and the skeleton mages silenced. The boss's corpse had exploded. There was nothing left of it. Lin Moyu realized he couldn't rely on anyone but himself now. This was the first time he'd ever faced a boss completely alone. Soul Flame was the only skill he had left. Fortunately, the boss's magic shield couldn't withstand it. Lin kept unleashing Soul Flame again and again. The spell struck, and the boss's face twisted in pain. His body trembled violently as he raised his staff. Intricate, starburst patterns flickered at his feet and coalesced into a pentagram array. "Meteor fire, world's destruction," the boss roared. It was a massive, ultimate attack, a level 40 mage skill unlocked only after the second-tier advancement, designed to devastate entire battlefields. The sky turned blood red as countless flaming meteors began to rain down. The power and scope of the assault far exceeded any ordinary mage's spell. Lin Moyu couldn't recall his controlled skeletons. He had no time. He could only endure the onslaught. The skeleton armor he'd summoned shone and took the brunt of the impact, its bones creaking as it absorbed the fiery barrage to shield him. The boss's attack range was huge. There was nowhere to hide. Lin Moyu decided then not to hide at all. Forget the skeletons. He wouldn't be baited into running. He felt ruthless and resolved to go all out and see who lasted. Whenever the boss sent down fiery meteorites, Lin Moyu answered with Su, L Flame, keeping the assault relentless. He refreshed his bone armor whenever it wore thin, since the armor was the only thing standing between him and the boss's control effects. The boss had tremendous vitality. It wasn't going to fall quickly. Even with skeleton warriors swarming it, bringing the creature down would take a minute or two, and right now he was the only attacker. His mental power drained fast. When more than half of his mana was gone, he rummaged for the recovery potion he'd packed before entering the dungeon and drank it. He hadn't expected to need it, but it steadied him. His inferno raged on for a full minute before finally subsiding. The boss then jabbed its staff and fired a beam of light. Skill, silence. It was trying to shut down Lin Moyu's abilities. The attempt failed. The bone armor blocked it. Bone armor was immune to all control and negative effects. After 2 tries, the boss gave up on silence. The boss stopped unleashing the world-shattering fire and switched tactics, raining down a barrage of explosive flames on Lin Moyu. Each individual blast was weaker than the meteor fire, but the strikes were blisteringly fast and came in an unending stream, far deadlier in a one-on-one duel than a single, massive meteor strike. Clusters of fire detonated around him, blooming like fireworks and roaring in his ears. Lin Moyu didn't dodge. He relied on the bone armor's extraordinary defensive power to absorb the impacts and stand his ground. At the same time, he answered with Soul Flame, firing at the boss as rapidly as he could. The boss's magic shield did nothing against the Soul Flame, while the bone armor shrugged off the explosive bursts. The matchup favored him. It became a grim contest of endurance. Neither side needed fancy maneuvers, just hit, endure, and keep hitting back. Lin Moyu kept one recovery potion on hand and drank it when necessary, keeping his spirit above half. The fight was deadly serious, but somehow monotonous in its simplicity. Eventually, the boss reached its limit. With a sound of pure pain, it let out a howl. Since the war began, he had never heard anything like that scream. It tore out of Shan now, raw, animal, and unmistakably pained, and even from a distance, Lin Moyu felt it like a blow to the chest. He knew better than anyone how agonizing the soul flame could be. No boss that had fought its way this far could normally be broken by it unless they truly didn't feel pain. The cry shattered Shan's concentration, unraveling the spells and skills it had been preparing. Lin Moyu's eyes lit up. Seizing the opening, he surged forward and intensified his assault on the staggered opponent.